You guys look like... What do they look like, Jimmy?
Dorks. They look like a couple of dorks.
Get those birds! Nerds! Nerds!
They're coming to get you, Barbara.
What? Are you kidding? We got us some family here. Can you dig it? Can you dig it? Can you dig it?
Welcome to another edition of the IdModcast podcast. Joining us is Brian Young.
God, I love being a turtle!
The Turtle Dork.
The Django, you black son of a bitch. The D is silent here, Billy.
And also joining us is...
Wow.
Also joining us... Keep it going. I got to keep it going. Okay. Is Lisa Gullickson.
Quick. Suck it before the venom reaches my heart.
Wife Dork.
Ha!
And Brad Gullickson.
And for gosh sake, watch your language.
That's not going away anytime soon.
Mouth Dork.
Here comes the kryptonite.
And I'm your host, Darren Smith.
Warm. Warmer. Disco.
The Disco Dork. I also stabbed a guy with a brick. Turns out, it's not that hard. And welcome to another edition of the IdModcast podcast.
Yay!
It sounds like by these quotes we have a nice variety in our Wakes and Dorks.
Yeah. Howdy, dorks. How's everyone been doing? It's nice to be back together. You were all on a little nice family getaway. Brian and I had our little date night at the Alamo.
I really enjoyed your Once Upon a Time in Hollywood REVIEWcast. I loved the Week in Dork, especially as it helped me pregame Hobbs and Shaw. Brian, thank you for that.
You're welcome.
You guys were talking about how you were recovering from Comic-Con, how the week after Comic-Con is always like sad. And you guys did a good job of filling in that sadness with lots of exciting stuff. Lisa and I went off to the family. We had a little vacation.
Yes.
But now I feel like the Comic-Con sadness is hitting me today.
That's right.
Vacation is over.
Yeah.
Now I just have the walls to stare at.
Yeah, I have to go back to work tomorrow, and it's so depressing. I don't even know if I remember how to do my job.
I know, that's the tricky thing. It's like, wait a minute, what's my passwords? How do I
man,
remember to do this? Like, I don't know if I do. I remember these people.
Can a person? Sometimes I just go out in the street and stand behind a person just in case it's a line.
Is this the Hall H line?
What are you guys in line for? Coffee, get out of my face, woman.
Brian.
Yes.
How was your Weekend Dork?
Weekend Dork was actually pretty good. I caught some catching up to do. Of course, we're going to talk about Hobbs and Shaw. But I know you said you went and saw Lion King, which we talked a little bit about on our Weekend Dork that we had last week. I actually went ahead and finally saw Lion King.
Yeah.
I felt like I was coming out the gate the most enthusiastic for Lion King
Did you saw it?
I loved Aladdin. I have not seen it.
Okay.
What the hell?
Because of the flack. It's been getting flack.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
So are you going to give more flack? Am I going to be Team Darren or am I going to be Team Brian?
Yeah, Darren liked it.
Well, I'm kind of in the middle. I'm kind of left moderate, so to speak, I guess.
Okay.
So I'm a little opposite of Darren, but not so far to the left. But I mean,
It's worth seeing in a theater?
Yeah, it is. It's a well-made movie. It's a good movie. Ultimately, for me, it's kind of a forgettable movie.
Okay.
Because of the whole copy and paste thing, it really does feel like it's kind of beat for beat the same movie. There are some things that I do like about the film. Again, the technology that's being done, I thought was magnificent. I thought the first half for me worked a lot better because I like the voice acting, specifically for Simba and Nala when they were kids.
Do you know the name of those who's speaking for them?
Nala was the girl in Us, was the daughter in Us.
Oh, no way!
Damn.
Shahidi, I can't remember her last name, and the Simba, I cannot remember who played Simba.
I'll find it for you, Brian.
But I know it was the daughter that was in Us. She played the younger version of Nala. One of my biggest criticisms, my main one, was really just the voice acting, and it's hard for me to say this, was, well, for one, Donald Glover and Beyonce. Donald Glover felt like he was sleepwalking through
Oh
this movie.
no!
The voice, and again, like voice acting, it's just, I mean, you can kind of take it or leave it, or you can kind of judge it on a certain type of scale, but I don't know, he just felt flat to me. Like Donald Glover, it just felt like he wasn't present. Beyonce, she's not the greatest actress, so I wasn't really expecting much, but it just felt like, specifically for her, like she literally was reading lines. And it just kind of took me out of the film. It took me out of those characters.
So here's the main criticism that I'm hearing, where I'm like, I'm not dying to go to the theater for this.
Yeah.
Is that it's Lion King shot for shot toned way down. So there's less dancing, there's less fantasy. Is that?
Yeah,
what you
it's
found?
it's pretty much more like a straightforward kind of narrative structure to the film, and it has the musical numbers, it has all the songs
That's good.
that we love.
And I'm sure that Donald Glover, Beyonce Knowles singing.
Oh
no, that face!
Can we see the love tonight?
Yeah. You could not feel the love?
I couldn't feel it. Not unfortunately, I
Young
couldn't.
Simba is J.D. McCrary, J.D. McCrary.
Okay.
And young Nala, from us, it's Shahidi Wright Joseph.
Right, Joseph. Yeah. So I
Good
thought,
for her.
yeah, all the stuff in the first half when they were kids. James Earl Jones, of course, is amazing. My biggest thing was going into the film was Scar, because I love Jeremy Irons as Scar.
Nice.
He is.
Chiwetel.
But Chiwetel's great,
Okay.
and I love Chiwetel as Scar, because Jeremy Irons kind of bring this kind of I don't know, like this charming villain. I don't know. It's just something about his character.
Jeremy Irons falls under the unflattering umbrella of Disney villains with quote-unquote gay British voice.
Okay.
Where they tend to have a little bit of a lilt. And it goes throughout, like, Jafar from Aladdin. There tended to be, the villains, to make them not scary, would have...
Yeah.
I watched an amazing documentary about it that I can't pull the title of.
Okay.
But the idea of, like, all of the Disney villains, to make them not scary, all sounded slightly effete. Slightly feminine.
That's
yeah.
Interesting.
I still found Scar scary.
He was diabolical.
Very diabolical. And Chiwetel does the same thing. I mean, you could definitely see that he's scheming and conniving in this movie as well. And Chiwetel Ejiofor does a great job of bringing that.
Well, he's everything.
He is. He's great. Because when I heard that they were bringing James Earl Jones back, I was like, oh man, you got to bring Jeremy Irons back. I was like, please, because I love him as a villain. And then when they cast Chiwetel, I was like, oh, okay, I like Chiwetel, but I was a little disappointed because I was like, I wanted them to bring Jeremy Irons back. I thought that would have been great, but he does a great job in the film.
What did you think about the Be Prepared?
I like it better than the original.
Really?
Yeah. That's the one thing that
Because Darren really liked Chiwetel's version.
Oh, you like his version of it?
No, I like Jeremy. Well, I commented on the difference was that I felt like with the original, because it was animated,
it was more theatrical.
More theatrical, whereas in this version...
Let's not get confused. They're both animated films.
True.
Well,
like, they're
cartoon,
pretending like that this is not an animated film.
But that's a testament to the technology and the artists for the VFX, because...
Yeah.
I was commenting to Brian. I talked to him off air. I said, well, when you go see it, because there's an article saying that Jon Favreau had revealed that there was only one live action shot in the film. And so I had asked Brian if he had read that article, because if not, I was going to ask him, I was going to pose that to him. Can you go, when you watch it, see if you can spot like that one live action shot? Because while watching the film, I was thinking, okay, so I wonder if they went on location, took some IMAX camera and shot this footage and then put in the digital animals, because it literally looks like that. But apparently everything is CGI.
Yeah, there's no camera involved.
Right, that's amazing.
But to me, like, that's amazing. But if that takes the story and, like, pulling the rug out from under it takes all of the magic out of it, then... what's the point?
And that's why I felt that this movie does kind of take the magic out of what I love. Because The Lion King, as far as like the new renaissance of animated movies from the 90s, I guess starting with like Little Mermaid all the way up to Lilo and Stitch.
What I call the cinematic sweet spot. Because that was...
I'd say up to Princess and the Frog.
1994?
Oh, okay.
Was was.
I think Little Mermaid was 89, so around 89.
Yeah. So this was my childhood because 89 to 90 was when I was in kindergarten.
Okay.
So like the cinematic sweet spot of Disney was 89 to, I guess, Princess and the Frog, because that was the last.
What was that? Was
canon
05?
Yeah, it's something like
Really? That Princess and the Frog was the last.
So
cell
about
animated one?
15, 16 years. Okay. Yeah, and it's funny for me to say that because I was like a teenager in high school, so
Right.
this was really kind of past my generation, but I saw like all these Disney movies in the theater.
It was like Pixar, like everybody saw.
It was.
Wikipedia article says that the Disney Renaissance lasted from 89 to 99. So
I believe
a
it.
full decade.
A decade.
for it.
Yeah, because another one of my favorites, which is underrated, was Tarzan. I love
That movie's great.
I
And
love
they
Tarzan.
picked Tarzan as the end of the Disney Renaissance.
Okay, that's what I was thinking. Because Lilo and Stitch was 02. I thought that would have been part of it.
So the
I've never seen Lilo
89
and
to
Stitch.
99 Disney movies are The Little Mermaid, The Rescuers Down Under, Beauty and the Beast, Aladdin, The Lion King, Pocahontas, Hunchback of Notre Dame, Hercules, Mulan, and Tarzan.
Yep.
I remember
So that's
that
that. Like
Yeah.
you said, that's that sweet spot. And The Lion King was always my favorite out of Lion King and Tarzan are probably my two favorites that spoke to me.
Still
So
haven't seen Tarzan.
man, that movie's so good. Man, Phil Collins' music. Oh,
It's
I love
great.
it.
Okay.
I love
Rosie
it.
O'Donnell. Rosie O'Donnell is an ape.
Oh,
Magic.
Okay.
I love it. But yes.
She's not a princess because she reads books.
Oh,
So that's why I was looking forward to The Lion King because it literally was one of my favorite animated movies from that time period. So, but then like you, Lisa, when I kept hearing like all this feedback about how mediocre it was, it kind of like, dwindled some of my expectation and anticipation for it. But I mean, and I don't want to be this 41-year-old guy harping on a kids movie. So this is Lion King for a new generation. And like you were talking about, Darren, I'm not going to harp on that point. But for me, I think it's a good movie. It's a well-made movie. It definitely pushes the visual storytelling. But ultimately, for me, I think it's a bit forgettable. So it's Letterboxd. I gave it 3 stars. It's decent.
That bums me right out because I
I'm
loved
sorry.
Aladdin
I know.
so
Me too.
much.
Me too. I love
doesn't-
Aladdin.
Yeah, Lion King doesn't have that heightened reality and that fantastical nature of Aladdin, Lisa. Again, because of the choice to go with photorealism and stay grounded in a realistic visual presentation. And like I was talking to Brian, like when I was reviewing it, that the expressiveness that cell animation of the original affords the artist to embellish Scar's facial features and reactions when he's being conniving and sneaky, and to widening those bright yellow eyes,
animated.
right? You because you're going with a realistic approach with CGI.
But it's not even just that kind of stuff. It's like how in Just Can't Wait to Be King, it becomes like kind of like this trippy, fantastical thing where there's all kinds of
excuse me. You might have similar shots where they're running between like the flamingo legs and stuff like that, but you do have that color palette is removed of all those vibrant, bright colors, and I mean it's replaced with the beauty of an African landscape, yes, but you don't have the vibrancy inherent in the cell animation. So that's
But at least I would still say I would highly recommend it. So if you can, definitely check it out.
I know we need to move on, but real quick, compared to The Jungle Book, like how do you feel? Like it more? Like it less? The same?
You know what? I think I would like the Jungle. For me, I like the Jungle Book a little bit better because the Jungle Book, as I know, I'm sorry. It's a short animated movie, and I think that they really do kind of open up that story. Yeah, they open up that story a little bit more by filling it in with a little bit more of Mowgli and showing a little bit more of his backstory and the ending. So I like what they did with that. The whole shot for shot thing, again, I don't want to be too critical of it, but just watching it, for me, I was just like, I mean...
Well, Darren's point last week was, there's not really much going on in The Lion King. It's like Fury Road. We go there, we come back,
It pretty much is. I mean, it pretty much is. I mean, so, I mean, a good movie, but like I said, it's kind of void of that spectacle that, I loved in the first movie.
I mean, I'm rooting for Jon Favreau.
Me too. I love him.
He doesn't need me to root for him. He's doing just fine.
Yeah.
But his last couple of films, I've been lukewarm on. I'm excited about The Mandalorian.
Yeah, me too.
But man, I loved Zathura so much.
I still haven't seen that.
Oh, it's so good.
Yeah.
Nobody's seen it, but Zathura was so good, and Elf was great, and they both have this sense of whimsy and magic that Lisa's talking about that she wants to see in The Lion King. And it's so funny to me, like this whimsy quality of his first two films seems absent from his Disney animated pictures because he's so hung up on this. The technology. He's kind of like James Cameron his career.
Ang Lee and stuff.
Yeah. Or Ang Lee his career, to your point last week.
Yeah, I know. Last thing I want to talk about before I pass it on to Lisa, I started watching The Boys. I saw there's 8 episodes all streaming now on Netflix. I've seen the first half, so I just finished episode 4. And you guys haven't seen.
No, coming back from our vacation, apparently our internet is still on vacation because we've not been able to stream shit since we've gotten home. Okay. 100% serious. Right now, I'm using my phone as my Wi-Fi. It's so depressing.
Yeah.
Verizon, get your shit together, please.
So I won't
read the entire comic book series.
Oh, you did? Okay. Well, I won't spoil anything for you guys who since you haven't seen the series, even though you've read the Gareth Ennis graphic novel, or for any listeners who haven't seen it. But I will say that I'm thoroughly enjoying this show.
Right.
The first 4 episodes.
Carl Urban looks great.
Carl Urban is great. Laz Alonso is awesome.
Right.
Everybody, the Frenchie, Huey, all these guys. The inciting incident that happens to Huey in the opening and what sets him on this course is horrific and tragic. I love how this movie is commenting on like the corporatizing of superheroes is very is parallel to like celebrity culture that we're dealing with now, and how marketing and branding and how that's become a big thing, and these superheroes really just kind of getting a little bit too much of their own power and stuff like that. And
Elizabeth Shue
is great, and how she's like spinning and manipulating all these different things to make sure that their image is top notch. What we see with somebody that translucent, what happened to him, all these different characters, man. It's interesting, man. It's an interesting commentary on what they're speaking on now. Especially, you talked about it before, how it deals with sexual assault in the workplace. You see that within this superhero corporation. It's fascinating, man. It is absolutely fascinating. I mean, it has me enthralled, and I'm only halfway through the series.
What do you think about the presentation of it? Like how
presentation? You're right. It's very cinematic. Very cinematic. I mean, it doesn't look flat. I mean, just the color palette, the composition, the depth, everything. It looks rich. It looks like a lived-in world. I'm really taken to this show. I've heard a lot of good buzz before I started streaming it, and even before Darren talked about it last week. There were reviews coming out about The Boys, and everybody was high on this series. I was like, okay, let me go ahead and check it out. And they're not wrong, at least from what I've seen in the first 4 episodes. So
Dan Trachtenberg he
directed the first episode,
first couple. He did a few, but he's also I think a producer or maybe on something. What else did he? What is his name?
Cloverfield Lane. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I think that was his first film.
10 Cloverfield.
Didn't he do like that Mortal Kombat?
No, I think he did a Portal short film.
Yeah, he did the Portal short film,
and then he did 10 Cloverfield Lane.
Okay.
He also has done some Black Mirror.
Okay, so he's done a little bit of television.
But he's from is he from the Grand Trachtenberg family? Nepotism?
I have no idea. I don't know what the Trachtenberg family is.
Michelle Trachtenberg is a person.
Yeah, from Buffy, right?
Yeah, and also Pete and Pete.
Oh, okay.
All right.
But yeah, I just want to talk a little because I've been streaming that show, and Darren talked about it, and I'll just have to.
Do you know what got me most engaged with the idea of this show was this is the only good thing to come out of the composers of 7th Annual Composers, because the composer was Christopher Leonard's.
Okay.
So, and he talked about how he went in with a fairly traditional orchestral cinematic score with some, bass guitar and things like that. But then when he went in with that product, they encouraged him to really do something different with it and do, add, inverting melodies and bending pitches. Did the score stand out to you in any way?
You know what? I'll pay more attention to that as I watch the second half. I really didn't pay too much attention to the score, but I'll make a point to listen for that the second half of the season.
He had some really interesting things to say, and he presented some of his score with just because he wasn't allowed to leak any new footage. They just kind of took all of the footage that was already associated with trailers and clipped it all together. I mean, it looked fascinating. I'm in.
Yeah, definitely an interesting show. So I will say the first episode, Lisa, is not VF. It's right in the opening sequence.
Okay.
Where they take down like this armored truck, and the driver gets out, and then it happens. But
what is so nauseating about driving an armored truck? I'm offended.
Well,
Don't tell me spoilers.
What happens to the truck? But
it's a badass shot.
Really?
with Queen Maeva. Yeah, it's pretty cool. But yeah, that's in the opening scene of the first episode. But I don't think I've seen any other.
Good looking out, because it does look edgy, and sometimes directors mistake edgy for vomiting.
There's one after Sparkle. What's it? Not
Dazzler?
Sparkle.
Is Dazzler in
not
this?
Dazzler.
Starlight.
Starlight. After the incident at work, when she's in the stall,
is she harassed at work?
Yeah. She's the center of that that element, that theme, and how she deals with that, and so
that's also vomiting.
Well, it's a quick cut to that. She comes out of the stall and washes her hands. They don't show anything.
They don't show anything. That's fine.
No, I'm thinking I've only seen 2 instances, and I don't.
Other emetophobes are riveted right now.
They didn't show. You didn't see anything.
Okay.
Okay. But I highly encourage this. I'm loving it so far. I'll report back on the second half, but
I'm in. I'm excited.
I'm digging.
And it's a short season, right? It's only 8.
It's only 8 episodes, and I think they've already announced that they are going to do a season 2.
Yes.
So
that's awesome.
So just wanted to mention that, and that is my week in Dork.
Yes.
Wife Dork.
Yes.
Yep. How was your week in Dork?
Mine is a little bit of a fortnight in Dork because while we were at the beach, I read some comics. Brad is going to talk comics, and I might jump in a little bit. We'll see how it goes.
Yeah, but I got some. The listeners told me to ask you. They text me and they hit us up on the message. They said, "Ask Wife Dork when she does her week in Dork, did she miss disco and Turtle Dork, but mostly disco?"
I did. I missed you guys terribly.
Yay.
I am so sad that I do not have more siblings to marry off. I would not. I mean, I wouldn't do that to my best friend. Get you guys into this family. It's a lot. I had a lot more fun than I anticipated.
That's good.
The older kids are now old enough to kind of go off and, to me, because we do this trip every 2 years. So our oldest is now 12. So the difference between hanging out with a group of 8 to 10-year-olds versus a group of 11 to 12-year-olds is huge.
Yeah.
So I remembered from 2 years ago, it was just pulling children out of the water was our entire beach trip, and it was very stressful. Yeah. We actually had one riptide situation where me and Kenzie were trying to swim 2 kids back to the shore.
Jesus.
And it was terrifying. And so I anticipated it being a lot kiddier.
Yeah.
But now the older kids, they just kind of go off into a corner. I hung out with one of my nieces today, and they apparently were all making their own version of Vine videos.
Oh,
and so they're just they're insane. She showed me one about it was a 12-second short film about a pudding thief. I laughed because I'm very polite, but it was bonkers. But they're doing their own thing.
Yeah.
I'm like, Vine wasn't even a thing. While you were alive, but
That
they
still
only
exists?
want to make Vine
I think
videos.
it's all about
it does
TikToks
not.
now.
What the fuck is that? Excuse
I
me.
don't know.
You guys need to get on Cameo.
What is that?
I'm
We are
so
not
old.
plugged in.
Me and Wesley Snipes were on Cameo.
It's just those two. Oh my God. If I was alone on a platform with Wesley Snipes, I could not be responsible for what would transpire. So I read some amazing comics. We're going to talk about them with Brad. But what I want to talk about is Lulu Wang's The Farewell.
Right? Brian and I had a date. We saw that.
Yeah,
Oh, that's so cute. This
So
is
good,
a
right?
perfect date movie.
It's really good.
So, just to give a little background, I am an avid listener to all NPR podcasts, but in particular, This American Life. So, I had heard Lulu Wang's story that became this movie On This American Life. It was actually on, I've pinpointed the actual episode. So it's the episode entitled What You Don't Know. And it's an entire episode about people keeping secrets. And this was just like, you know, how This American Life is, where it's just like, it's done in acts. So this story was the first act. And it was a story that stuck in my mind because it focused on one specific way. Chinese culture is different than American culture in a way that we just don't identify with. Yeah. So in China, the tradition is that all medical information of elderly people doesn't go directly to them, but goes to the family, and the family gets to decide how informed that elderly person is. So in the case of this story, it was Lulu Wang's grandmother. Mm-hmm. She had been diagnosed with 3 months to live because of lung cancer. Yes, yeah. And they decided not to tell her because the belief was once you know you have cancer, it's not the cancer that kills you, but the fear and the giving up.
Yep.
So I got this little glimpse into something that I really didn't understand, and the message was something that I did not anticipate. So when this film showed up at Sundance,
I'm sorry, Lisa. So this segment, so they don't. So it wasn't an entire episode.
It was literally like I want to look at the exact.
I think it's 25 minutes.
Really?
Yeah, it's literally just a piece, and it's perfect. Like all things This American Life.
I would have had so many questions. Oh.
So what I've been recommending to people before I had actually seen the film.
Yeah.
Was to listen to this story first because it was something that really stuck with me and I found so compelling. And so now that I've seen the film and I've been anticipating it for a long time because it was at Sundance while we were at Sundance, but it was impossible to get into, especially for us like low-level press minions. We had to wait in line. We were last pick for everything. Granted, we got to see a lot of stuff. But we didn't get our opportunity to see the farewell.
Movie we got shut out of because we were late.
Yeah. And so we were so excited. I mean, I've been so excited to see this. Plus, I've fallen in love with Awkwafina, and I would love to get into my history with that. But I was anticipating this film. But now that I've seen the film, now I'm recommending watch the movie first.
Okay.
And then go back and listen to that 25-minute piece, which is what I did with Brad, actually. And so what I found most fascinating about going back is those beautiful beats that are in the story are also in the film. Like the drinking game is also in the film.
That's hilarious.
Oh man, what a father.
The force feeding of delicious food when nobody feels like eating. That's also in the film. Yeah. Now there are like a few specific details that have been changed. Like, for example, the cousin that has been kind of forced into having their wedding early so that it can be done within this 3-month window of the grandmother perhaps dying. They'd actually been dating for a lot longer than like 3 months.
Okay.
But it is true that the daughter... like the daughter-in-law who was getting married, the one who wasn't
from Japan.
She was actually from Japan and she had no idea what was going on. So like I find it fascinating to find those times, but I found like I loved how Lulu Wang found also the exercises, those are also in the original story. Yeah. But I loved how she extended this like without adding a whole lot of new information, extended it into this really beautiful movie that I just found so fulfilling and what I want out of increasing representation. Like this was a story that I think some people would say Americans wouldn't identify with. But I find like the fact that I don't want to spoil too much about the movie, but it opens my mind in saying like, maybe this protecting people from the truth of their lives is not necessarily a bad idea.
It's interesting because, I mean, after me and Darren saw it, we were outside the movie theater because I had so many questions, and it opens up so many type of questions to ask, like as far as the differences between Western and Eastern culture and how we go about this approach. And is it like you're saying, is it beneficial? Is it morally beneficial to withhold that information? Because I even look at somebody like myself, like, would I have the will to live if I found out that I had cancer?
Well, because in the United States, we value autonomy above all other things. Yeah. And so we feel entitled to any and all information. Mm-hmm. We want to have fully informed decisions. But there are times in my life where I'm just like, does knowing this thing, does it better my life? Or is it paralyzing me?
Yeah, and it also goes to I don't think it's giving anything away, but either her father or her uncle said, like, like your life is not your own. It's part of a whole. And I think that goes a long way into understanding what that Eastern culture is all about.
Where everybody everybody's entitled to, I don't know, it's hard to even, I don't even have the words to express what that means, but your life is a part of this web of which you are responsible for everyone around you, but also everyone around you is also responsible for you. Yeah. And you'd think that idea of everybody sharing in the weight of life would ultimately make it easier for everybody to carry. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and just seeing Awkwafina, how she's trying to navigate her own emotions and feelings and whether this is a moral thing to do or not. I love seeing her having to really trying to figure this whole thing out.
Was the ending spoiled for you since you heard the story?
Yes.
Okay.
But it was increased because now it's 6 years later.
Oh, okay.
So I cannot wait until we turn these microphones off and I can give you how they ended differently, because I think you will I won't even tell you how you will feel.
Okay.
But
I just think my decision never to go to the doctor is the right one.
Oh, Brad, no.
No.
We're not saying that,
That's exactly what I'm saying.
I'm just wondering, when do they stop telling you? If I went to the doctor, with Brad now, would they tell me all of the horribleness that is going on inside there?
He's not elderly.
I don't know. It's all a matter of relativity.
We're not going to the doctor. Power of the mind, guys. I'm fine.
I would love to talk about the beauty that is Awkwafina, because Awkwafina started out as a YouTube star.
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
yep.
Okay.
So,
have you heard my vag?
It is literally the best thing that ever happened to me.
I've heard about it. But
you should listen to my vag.
So
my anthem.
Where I first heard of Awkwafina through Ocean's 11, and she did
Ocean's 8, Lisa.
Oh, whatever. No, it's not Ocean's. Oh, yeah, it is Ocean's 8. Whatever. Yeah. So Ocean's 8. The number doesn't matter. What matters is Awkwafina and her power, whichever one she was in. And leading up to that, she did an interview on So Many White Guys, which is Phoebe Robinson's from Two Dope Queens podcast, where she interviews everybody except white guys, except for once per season. She's had Tom Hanks on, I think. But once per season, she'll have one white guy, and then all of the rest have to be non-straight, non-white dudes.
But what you're saying is I've got women. A chance.
Yeah. Once per season, you can get on that podcast. But she was on that podcast, and she talked about how she's made this transition from being a YouTube star to being this film phenom. And I fell in love with her. I found her so inspirational. Just that it goes with that same millennial idea of you have to find what's extraordinary about you and figure out a way to put that into the world. And so she did it with My Vag, which is a rap. Girls Got Bars. I don't know if she really has bars. I mean, they're super dirty. But it was the kind of thing where I found it on Spotify, and I started listening to it at the gym, and I was looking around, and I was like, is this okay? Does everybody, around, if people knew what I was listening to, would they feel safe? I'm not sure if they would, because it is literally the dirtiest thing I've ever heard.
It's a little lewd.
Yeah, it's and I
so
don't
good,
even
though.
know
I haven't
it's
heard it.
great.
And I like the message behind it.
It's legit
Okay.
funny, and I've seen her used well, and I've seen her used less well. Like she was barely in Ocean's 8, but I think that like her playing the kind of slide magician pickpocket kind of character, I thought that was interesting.
She's awesome in this, though.
Yeah, I think she was used less well in Crazy Rich Asians because she was kind of she had a character haircut. She came across a little like less grounded, a little bit more jokey.
Yeah,
But
comedic relief.
I found in The Farewell, I just found her performance so wonderful, especially her interactions with the woman who played the grandmother, Zima.
Oh man,
Is that her? I might have just said the wrong name. Oh no, Shuzhen Zhao.
Zhao, yeah.
Zima, who did they play?
That's the sister.
No, I don't know. We shouldn't start guessing who these people are because we might be wrong, and that's embarrassing.
Yeah, but me and Darren both commented on her performance, the grandmother. I don't know if she's acted before, but she was amazing.
I mean, her and Awkwafina had legit chemistry.
You could feel that relationship.
I told
between them.
Brian, it felt like they just got a real grandma and just didn't give her a script and just said, put the cameras on her and let her be.
According to IMDb, which I don't know how all encompassing it is, this is her only role.
Interesting. That's good.
But I thought that she was absolutely so wonderful. And the scenes that they had together, like, were just so... The love was just so palpable between them.
Wasn't it How is the grandmother, correct?
Nai is the grandmother.
Nai. Oh, yeah.
How maybe...
Be the sister.
No, the sister was little Nai.
No, How was Awkwafina's father. I
Okay,
think.
I'm terrible. Okay.
Yeah, we should have taken notes. This is just people doing the best they can with a little limited worldview that they have. But I'm in love with this story as an idea. I think the fact that the woman who wrote the script and who wrote the radio piece, which became a script that became the film, it was the woman who lived that. And you could feel that in the story. You could feel that lived in perspective where you go like, this perspective is so singular and so foreign to me that I don't know. Watching this film, you feel like you're really part of something really special.
It's extremely compelling.
And I can't wait for the next thing that Lulu Wang does because I'm sure she has 1,000 stories like this. This idea of, I don't know what it's like to be an immigrant. I don't know what it's like to be a part of her family. And whether or not her next film is something that is fiction or another thing for her from her life, I find her... She has put together just her storytelling, the storytelling with the use of the birds.
Oh, yeah.
And how the birds represented something in her life and how that metaphor played out in an unanticipated but such an exciting way. And now with Awkwafina, my girl, now she's going to be part of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and she's going to be in the Shang-Chi film.
Yeah.
I'm so excited for that. And I love, just getting a taste of these people and then just getting to watch their careers blossom. I can't wait until Shang-Chi comes out and I can see what Awkwafina does.
It's interesting with this movie that how it's something that's so unfamiliar to us as like a Western civilization, but the movie feels so relatable. And I think that's because of the family dynamic. And I love that about it. Is that how we can easily relate to these people and relate to their emotions.
And that idea of, well, I can't go against what my family is doing. Like, it's my family's perspective and therefore... like, I have to do it this particular way. And like, the way that she, like an American, fights it all the way through without actually upsetting it. Her being able to say to her mother, like, are we sure this is right? And her mother being able to give her the perspective of, well, this is where I'm coming from. And this is where the culture is coming from. Or her, coming up against her dad who is so heartbroken and so proud of this thing that he's doing, keeping the secret, even though the daughter doesn't know that it's right. Yeah, it's extremely relatable. It's like a window.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
All right. What else you got? That it?
I want Brad to talk about Murder Falcon.
All right. B. Gullickson, Mouth Dork.
So,
how was your week in Dork?
My past week was with the family, and I spent most of that time hiding in hammocks, hiding in nooks and crannies of this massive house with 16 people in it. Reading comic
It's actually
books.
18 people if you count babies as people.
Is it 18 now?
Yeah.
I do count babies as people.
I don't, so I keep saying 16.
I don't know. Those babies are walking around. They're not really even babies.
They're talking.
Yeah, they're talking. They're screaming.
Yay.
They're crying. They're making all kinds of sounds.
They're peeing on things when we get to find out where and why.
Yeah, yeah.
That was my favorite question of the weekend. Mommy, can you change me into my dry dress and dry underwear?
Oh.
Where did you pee?
I don't know. Never, think about that story every time you go into an Airbnb.
Oh.
Like, where did you pee? I don't know. I guess it's fine.
Oh.
Yay, Fantastic Fest is coming. So I read a lot of comic books. And because Lisa wants to talk about Murder Falcon, I'll start with Murder Falcon. This is like one of my new favorite comic books, period. It's an Image comic. It's 8 issues. It's recently been collected. It's $19.99. It comes from writer and artist Daniel Warren Johnson. It's inspired by true events, if you can believe it. But I won't say how because I do not want to spoil the emotional revelations of Murder Falcon.
Oh.
I'm going to tell you what the basic premise is.
Amazing.
Monsters are attacking cities.
Yep.
A rift in a dimensional space has occurred, and these creatures are coming through, kind of like a Pacific Rim situation.
It's if Stranger Things and Pacific Rim had a beautiful baby that was beautiful than them both separately,
and they were both actually good rather than mediocre.
Oh, all right.
Yeah.
You're gonna
shots fired.
Your baby's present. Okay.
And these monsters are attacking, and the way the story opens, it just throws you in like this blue, 80s van rolls up into a monster situation. This guy with crazy long blonde hair steps out of the van. He's got an electric guitar. The cops are like, "What are you doing? There's nothing you can do. We've tried everything. These monsters can't be killed." He's like, I don't need weapons. I've got metal." And then he strikes a chord on his electric guitar, and lightning explodes all around him, and Murder Falcon appears. This He-Man, Masters of the Universe looking man-falcon creature who has Gatling guns on his shoulders and swords and axes. And
bottomless fanny pack.
A bottomless fanny pack, which he can pull all kinds of gadgets out of. And as long as the main character is shredding like a badass on his electric guitar.
From his heart. It has to be from his heart.
From his heart. Oh. He's powering Murder Falcon, who comes from this other dimension called the Heavy.
Okay.
And what you learn is that in the Heavy, there are people on our side that are connected to their beings, like Murder Falcon, a.k.a. Murph. And Murph, he gets strength from a pure heart playing amazing heavy metal.
On a specific instrument.
This specific guitar. And so the main character, I can't remember, why am I blanking on the main character's name, Lisa? His band has recently broken up. He's gone through a hardship.
Jake.
His relationship has fallen apart. And Jake was getting ready to quit until he discovered this connection that he had with Murder Falcon.
He's already alienated
everybody.
Everybody.
The band is broken up. And when he learns about this, Murder Falcon's like, "Dude, you guys rocked. You were a great band. You need to get your band together, and we need to get the right instruments into your band." And then so, we got to get the right bass. We got to get the right drum set. And then they all get their own Murder Falcons.
But they all have moments of healing that has to happen between each other to release the magic of their music playing. So it's about healing wounds between people.
And as the issues progress and more people enter in the story, and there's this Norwegian death metal band that they hook up with for a little while, and then there's these Japanese orchestral players that they hook up with. And, you know, of course, like the big showdowns like in Tokyo. And I mean, it's Daniel Warren Johnson's an amazing artist who you can see the influences of many cartoonists and manga artists and in his work. But at the same time, it feels incredibly unique. It doesn't look like anything else either.
Yeah. I think it's so stunning. The colorer on this is Mike Spicer, and the colors are absolutely psychedelic, neon. It's such a feast to look at.
You know, I'd seen the issues being published in singles, and I remember going like, oh, I should really pick this up. But then I was like, it'll be in trade soon, so I'll just wait for the trade. And I'm reading the first trade. And, you know, like that opening scene happens where he's like, I don't need weapons. I'm here. I've got metal. You're like, yeah, this is rad, man. I love this comic. But then suddenly, like, as Lisa's talking about these friendships that are healing, and then as I really don't want to spoil what's going on with Jake.
I'm not going to spoil it.
But, like, as you start to learn what is wrong in Jake's relationship with his ex,
wife,
like, it builds to a moment, and suddenly I turn the page on this one like splash moment, and I just start to cry. And like from the rest of the book, like the last 2 issues, I read the whole thing in tears. And I could not believe like Murder Falcon is one of like the most emotionally rich and warm comics I've read in a decade.
So how did you hear about it? Did you just come across it?
I first saw Daniel Warren Johnson through Twitter because he does these amazing commissions. Like for $150, $300, he'll do these commissions of characters you know that are just stunning. And people go to him and they're like, I want a Wolverine, I want a Bruce Lee, I want a Gundam, I want a Luke Skywalker. And he actually did a bootleg Skywalker comic book called Old Man Skywalker.
Yes, I didn't realize that was the same guy.
Which we connected with a couple listeners from the Comic Book Couples Counseling podcast when they were in Detroit, and Daniel Warren Johnson was at the Detroit convention. They went to his table and they got us copies of this Skywalker bootleg comic. And this Old Man Skywalker comic is like Last Jedi era Skywalker. Okay. He's in a Star Destroyer, and there is a Sith on the other side. And they meet, and it's like gunslingers, right? Okay. And all these stormtroopers are coming, and Luke Skywalker is obliterating them, like tearing them limb from limb using the Force. And these 2 Force creatures hit. The Star Destroyer erupts around him, tears the Star Destroyer apart. Luke Skywalker sends the Sith soldier to this planet body below. He reforms the Star Destroyer and then sends it down to the planet and explodes on top of the Sith guy.
Oh, that's awesome. That's cool.
Like, it's awesome. So I read that, and I was like, well, I got to read this guy's comic, Murder Falcon. Okay. And then I read this Murder Falcon. I'm like,
we have one niece named June, and she is, I hate to say it because I know that my sister listens. June might be our favorite. She's super cute.
I don't say that, Lisa. June is
joking.
Great. I love
They're
Cece.
all adorable. Cece's very cute. Laura Lee's very cute. We got to name them all now. Mars, also cute, though she's a preteen now, and that gets awkward. But
Rory is, a fascinating artist. He's all about hand dancing right now.
He's into like whatever where it's like the pop and lock, but it's just your hands.
Yeah, that shit's amazing.
And he's really damn good at it.
He is.
Like every time we would sit down with him, he was always doing it, like at the dinner table.
My
in the
siblings
car.
make exclusively super brilliant, weird people.
That's dope.
It's dope, but at the same it's like, do I want to foster a genius? Oh, and what if what if our seed is like a dumb seed? That's why we're not having kids. Because we would definitely have the dumbest one. Because you can't make 9 geniuses.
Why not?
Anyway, tell your story, Lisa, without offending your family.
So, but she was showing a lot of interest in the comics we were reading because she was familiar with them through. There's like a DC.
Superhero girls.
She loves Wonder Woman. Like last Christmas, we gave June like a Wonder Woman costume, and she found that very exciting.
She's the closest niece and nephew we have to a comic book fan, and I am determined to foster her.
We're muscling it. We might be overdoing it. Oh, no. But so when we would sit down with a comic book, she would want us to read it to her, but she would just point to the characters and we would tell her who the characters were, like if it was an X-Men comic.
I was reading Alan Moore's From Hell also while I was there. She's like, "What's that about?" I'm like, "London."
She asked a lot about. I was also reading Salem's Lot.
Oh.
And I got to the point of describing the plot to her where she stopped asking. She would just look at the book and go, "Ick," which I thought was funny. But I was reading Murder Falcon, and I had already retold all of the parts, you know, with some edits for 5-year-old ears, up to where I was reading to. And she's just like, "Why don't you read it to me?" And I only had a few pages left. So I just started reading it to her. And unbeknownst to myself, I started becoming like emotional and like choked up with tears reading the last couple of pages. It is truly a transcendent, beautiful story. It's like one of those things where it's just like you can really identify with it. But if you haven't had those same life experiences that the character of Jake has, it's enough of a window.
I think if I was 15 and reading this, I would be like, "Yeah, Dio, metal, yeah." And now, I'm 40 and I'm like, "Oh, Jake."
It's a real emotional sweep of the leg because you're just like, "Oh my goodness, he has a metal arm. Why am I crying?" It's like that kind of thing. But I got so emotional just reading the end, and I know that June had no idea what was going on, but she just looked in my eyes and goes, "That was a really nice story." And I was like, "It was a really nice story. It's just that Jake."
Yeah,
we cannot recommend this enough.
You got to pick it up.
High praise.
Can we get a petition started to have like Edgar Wright do a live action?
I mean,
oh my God, that would be so awesome.
I'd really like to see.
Is he a metal guy? I want like a legit.
I'd like a legit metal guy. I'd also like now
Zombie.
that I've no.
Don't you dare.
I mean, I love Rob Zombie, but it's just not a Rob Zombie book. Like now that we've seen Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, I really just want more and more like genuine animated adventure films. And I think an animated Murder Falcon, an animated Hellboy, like these are properties that deserve, that format.
Reality adjacent magic.
But real quick, there's a lot of like really big comics being published in singles right now that I wanted to talk about. Jonathan Hickman is back at Marvel. He took a long break after finishing Secret Wars, and he's writing 2 series that are going to lead into the regular monthly X-Men series. He's writing House of X and Powers of 10.
There's a bunch of talk going on about that.
This stuff is astonishing.
I've never loved something I didn't understand so much.
Exactly. Like I'm 2 issues in. What we're reading now, we do not understand what we're reading. Like he is building a world or worlds and times, and we don't even comprehend what he is actually crafting yet. We just know it's really interesting, and it's unlike any X-Men book I've read since Grant Morrison's X-Men.
Jesus.
And based on 2 issues, I've read 2 issues. I mean, I might be loving this more than Grant Morrison's X-Men, which is crazy. That's maybe hyperbole, Darren.
Yeah.
But how do I even describe this? So House of X.
Yeah, you go. You go and then I go.
House of X 1 came out first, then Powers of 10 came out. I know it says Powers of X, but when you read the comic, you learn it's actually the Roman numeral. It's Powers of 10. House of X opens and you see a Professor X who may or may not be Professor X. He's got He's walking around. He's got a Cerebro helmet on, and he is birthing X-Men out of a tree. And
out of these pods.
Out of these pods. And one of them looks like Cyclops. And, one of them looks like Jean Grey. You're like, okay, so he's growing X-Men. Okay. And then you cut to these government agents who are going to meet with ambassadors from Krakoa, which is the mutant island, which is now a mutant nation. And these world dignitaries are meeting up with Professor X's people, because on Krakoa, they've started growing these flowers that cure Alzheimer's. They extend your life. And there's another thing that they do. Extend your life, cures Alzheimer's. Oh, and make you smarter. And he's going to let you have
for
access.
Humanity. So
for
not
humanity.
not Homo sapiens superior, but just Homo sapiens.
That's what it does for humans. And if you get these magic drugs from these magic flowers, you just have to recognize us as a nation.
But for Homo superior, they are they allow transporting.
They allow teleportation anywhere in the world or galaxy. So there's
for
scenes
only
on Mars.
Homo superior.
There's scenes all over the place, and there's access to what they call no places, which are
they're
tumors,
like little pockets of nothing.
Where Krakoa is a mutant island, but if you go into these certain portals, even Krakoa doesn't know where you are.
I don't understand what those are yet.
I don't know.
I don't know what that means.
And so they meet with the ambassadors, and the ambassadors, one of them is Magneto, and he's like, "Look, this is what you're going to do. We're your new gods now, and you better, deal with us." So that's what's going on in House of X. I don't understand what's happening. Powers of 10 is in multiple timelines, it appears. There's the timeline when Professor X had the dream of the X-Men, and he's having
that's X to the power of 0.
X to the power of 0. And he's having a conversation with Moira McTaggart. Moira McTaggart's like, why is it it's not a dream if it's real, Charles. And that's where that timeline ends. Then there is
X to the power of 1.
X to the power of 1, which is called the World, which is where House of X is taking place. And in House of X, there's Magneto's wearing his old white costume. Marvel Girl's wearing her old 60s costume. Cyclops is in some unrecognizable costume that he's wearing. So what are all these different timelines? Wolverine's in his brown suit. It seems like all these X-Men are from different eras of X-Men.
So House of X is
the World.
Yeah,
the next power.
And then X to the power of 2 is 100 years in the future.
And that's Days of Future Past, Nightmare World. Sentinels are everywhere. Nimrod's after you. And then there are these new mutants we've never seen before. One's named Rasputin. She looks to be the daughter of, or she looks to be a combination of Colossus and Shadowcat.
So they've been breeding and cloning mutants.
Yeah, and so she has the powers of turning all metal and phasing. And she has Magic Sword, Colossus's sister's Limbo Sword. And she's tearing up Sentinels. And she's rad. And then there's a red Nightcrawler walking around, but it's not Nightcrawler.
Then X to the power of 3 is 1,000 years in the future. I don't know how much we should say about that, but Homo sapiens, it's not looking good for us.
No.
Yeah, Homo superior is reigning supreme. And there's a character there who's like a Buddhist-like character, almost like a Buddha character. And she's talking to a little robot. It's just so out to lunch, but incredibly engaging. And like all Jonathan Hickman books, there's graphs and there's made up language and there's an alphabet that you have to learn. And there's paragraphs after paragraphs about what's happening in the world, giving you context to what you're reading. And you're just you read it once, you're like, I don't know what I just read.
What I find
gotta read it again.
So interesting is the idea of what is the correct ratio of humans, Homo sapiens, to Homo superior. And it's that idea of, because in House of M, there was this huge event that
where Scarlet Witch was no more mutants, and she reduced the population of mutants.
So that then Homo sapiens were the safe majority. But there are certain mutants that believe that ultimately Homo superior is supposed to overtake.
And that's where the racism comes in that allegory. These people are they're coming for our jobs.
So it's the matter of the sacredness of the ratio and what happens if you go too far one direction, too far the other direction. So everything seems to be walking this very fine line.
But we talked about this during our San Diego Comic-Con REVIEWcast when Lisa and I went and saw Jonathan Hickman talk at a panel. And he was just saying, I'm the guy you call when you want to talk big, epic, trippy sci-fi stories. That's what I'm good at. And he is laying it all out there. And I don't know if we're reading what we think we're reading. Is it time? Is it, what clones? There's something else going on that we're unaware of. And I think in 5 years, when he wraps this all up, or 2 years, or whatever it may be, what we're reading now we'll read in a totally different way.
But another thing that he talked about was his talent when he was orchestrating these huge mass events, was creating a conflict where both sides are right. Like, so if you think about Civil War, you can identify with Tony Stark saying that
we need regulation.
We need regulation. Like, we can't just have vigilantes with these crazy powers running crazy.
That's logical. It makes sense.
Right, it makes a lot of sense. But you also understand where Steve Rogers is coming from, where we need autonomy to do what needs to get done. We are the people who are willing to take those risks. So I'm interested in really getting to the bottom of this X-Men story of where the two sides are Homo superior as a species or as a, an offshoot of humanity.
As an evolution.
As an evolution deserves being the primary race of humanity because of how advanced they are. But humanity is also a sentient being deserving of life and deserving of,
of existence.
Existence, despite not having these crazy powers.
But like that conversation, like that argument, that's been the argument of the X-Men since the beginning.
But don't you
I think they're touching on that. I think something else is going on.
Well, obviously there's something else going on, but it's clearly part of the conversation, conversation of, does it really come down to Magneto is right?
Yeah, or
is it Professor X who is right?
Yeah. So I don't know. Highly recommend it. We're 2 issues in.
We're already fighting about it.
We're 2 issues in, and House of X and Powers of 10 are being published every other week. So House of X is 1 week, then it's Powers of 10. Then the next week it's House of X again. So through October, we're going to have a chapter in this story every week.
But there seems to be throughout these comics this kind of, I don't know if this is a computer program or what, but there are like these white pages that give you all of this
documentation,
back information. And then this is my favorite part because you know how I love a list. At the back of each issue, it gives you a reading order. So it tells you, you have to start with House of X 1, then you go to Powers of X 1, then you go to House of X 2, then you go to Powers of X 2, then you go to Powers of X 3, then you go to House of X. So it gives you kind of a beautiful little checklist that you get to check off for like $5 to $6 at a time.
Okay, yeah, I was going to ask about that as far as like either the reading order or if those stories go in tandem with each other.
I mean, to me,
and it gives you all of the release dates.
It's one story. They're calling it 2 titles.
Yeah.
Kill Bill Volume 1, Kill Bill Volume 2. Is it 2 movies? Is it 1 movie?
Yeah.
I'm telling you right now, this is one story.
Okay.
It's 2 comics, but it's one story.
And they're not shy about saying that.
Yeah. And then finally, real quick, Scott Snyder and Greg Capullo are finishing their run on Batman, and they're doing it in 3 premium format issues as part of the DC Black Label of their new title, Batman Last Night on Earth. And I sold this to Darren before we started recording as Batman Fury Road. It starts off, and it's like a normal investigation. Batman's on the streets of Gotham. There's a crime going on. He doesn't understand it. He's investigating it. Then he gets injured, and he wakes up in an Arkham Asylum, and they're telling him, you killed your parents. Like, this whole Batman mythology you've come up with, this is BS. You're the murderer, and all these rogues, Joker and Scarecrow, those are all your doctors, man. Like, Harley Quinn's your nurse, okay? And he's like, I don't buy that at all. And then Alfred comes in, he's like, no, I'm sorry, Mr. Wayne. You killed your parents. This is how it all went. And then something happens, and Batman leaves Arkham Asylum, and it's a wasteland outside. And an apocalypse of some event has occurred as a result of Toyman and Lex Luthor, and the heroes have gone underground. Wonder Woman's got a mohawk. She's gone full Furiosa. Yes. When she encounters dudes, she's chopping heads off.
Oh.
Like, it's way out there. It's weird. The first thing that Batman discovers in the apocalypse is the severed head of the Joker in a jar, and it's still talking. And so he's walking around the wastelands with the Joker's severed head. And then they run into like Scarecrow, who's riding atop Bane. Like, it's like, what a weird way to go out on your Batman story.
That shit looks amazing.
And it's Greg Capullo, and he's one of my favorite artists. And there's something about the way he draws the profile of Batman that I really love. It's like a Bull Terrier Batman. It's he's got a great Batman.
I love it.
And yeah, and it's weird, and there's somebody ruling over Gotham called Omega, and he's got like the dark side Omega beams, and he has an Omega light in the sky that's kind of like the Omega beams, but it looks like a bat symbol. So it's like, what's happening? So both in Batman Last Night on Earth and Powers of 10 and House of X, you don't fully know what's going on, but damn it, it is so damn good and exciting, and you're just like, I'm in love with comics in a way that I haven't been in a long time.
Well,
So recommend those both, and Murder Falcon.
I'm
Hate
excited.
to do the Joss Whedon did it, but there is an episode of Buffy where called Normal Again, where she gets bitten by a vampire with hallucinogenic
But here's the thing.
venom, and she has visions that she is not Buffy the Vampire Slayer, but she is Buffy in the mental hospital.
There is nothing new narratively in Batman Last Night on Earth. Like, there's nothing new to it from its setup. But it's how this world is being interpreted by with the character of Batman, but more importantly, how much fun Greg Capullo is illustrating it. And so when I first heard about it, I was, I also was someone sold it to me like it's Batman Fury Road. I'm like, well, I've got Fury Road. Like, who cares? Like, like I don't need Batman Fury Road. I got Fury Road. But then I read it. I was like, this shit's dope.
Yeah.
So yeah. And I tried to give the first 2 issues to Darren, but Darren doesn't want to read it until the 3rd and final issue's out. So he's got a month to wait.
It's so tempting because it looks amazing. It looks amazing.
All right, I rambled on too long, but there you go.
That is
There's
fine.
no such thing on the It Modcast podcast.
Nope. Well, fortunately, the only thing I've really done this week, I did a rewatch of Once Upon a Time in Hollywood today, and I did not accidentally say Once Upon a Time in Mexico, so success. And then I also, like Lisa, I got a chance to see, as I mentioned earlier, The Farewell. So just for the sake of brevity, I will echo all of Lisa's sentiments. It is an amazing film if you have not seen it. A very strong effort from Lulu Wang. So she has a new fan for life, as well as Awkwafina. And all of the other performances in the film are equally as captivating and moving. So if you have not seen that film, do yourself a favor. Like Lisa says, check it out. I have... What have I been watching? That's really it.
Well, you were talking before the other dorks got here. It was just me and you were saying how you enjoyed Once Upon a Time in Hollywood a lot more on the second watch.
Yeah, after obviously I have a certain expectation, whether it's just consciously or subconsciously, about a new Tarantino film. Whenever I go see it, what is this thing going to be? In what way is he going to spin his narrative yarn, with his unique voice? And, the trailer does a good job of introducing some of the characters of that story, but not necessarily laying out what exactly the film is or what it means or what even some of the themes of that the story is going to be, which I appreciate, but... even with that sort of ambiguous trailer, I still, when I was telling Brad, I still kind of went in with, my own expectations. As the story's playing out, I'm thinking to myself, okay, I think maybe this character's going to do this, or maybe Tarantino's going to do that, or maybe the story's going to be about this. But ultimately, when the story is not that. I would be lying if I said I didn't come out of that movie kind of maybe disappointed. I don't even know if that's the right word, but
it's weird because Brad and I came out with the same thing where it didn't necessarily go where we were expecting, and we didn't know how we related to the message of this film.
Right, and so that's how I felt initially. But having seen the film upon its initial release, and also having time to ponder and think about what I saw in that film, and come to grips with what the film ultimately is, as opposed to what I thought it was going to be, I go back today for the rewatch, having accepted what the film was, and now I'm not, during the second watch, I'm not going in anticipating something to happen then that doesn't happen. I know what's going to happen now. So it's was a completely different viewing experience, and I was able to watch the film on its own terms, and I enjoyed this watch more than I did the first watch, and I enjoyed my first watch of the film, even with it being not what I thought it was going to be. But this go around, it moved at a much faster clip, even though it's still 2 hours and 40 minutes long. But things seem to progress a lot faster than before. There were just little small details this go around that I noticed that I may have overlooked or just didn't didn't dawn on me the first go around. But then I had an interesting experience like in the third act of that film with the with Tarantino doing his his revisionist history with the incident and the events of that incident that night, and instead of the murder of Sharon Tate and the people that were with her, Tarantino subverting that and turning that on its ear. So I'm watching that scene again, and my brain's overthinking like it always does. So I'm thinking about, and I'm paying attention to the audience and their reaction to it. I'm thinking about the criticisms of that last 20-30 minutes of the film, the response to the specific violence towards women, and I'm also thinking about Sharon Tate's sister and her response to that movie, and then the general public's response. So I'm thinking of all of these different things while all this stuff is going on, and it was interesting to see, firstly when spoilers if you haven't seen the film, but when
too late,
Brad Pitt when Cliff Booth gets into the altercation with the intruders, and that aforementioned violence towards women is enacted upon those characters, the audience reacted the same way as my initial audience when I went to see it at the Alamo Drafthouse, and that there were cheers. And as I mentioned to Brad off air, like I don't know if that laughter and stuff like that was how some people laugh when they're uncomfortable, or if it was just genuine, glee at what they were seeing. But it was just something that I noted, that the response both times that I've seen that film has been the same for that particular scene. But also while I'm watching that, again, I'm thinking about people's criticisms of in calling Tarantino and criticizing his violence towards women in his films, and in light of the Time's Up movement and the Me Too movement, and how that could be construed as him.
I don't think that Quentin Tarantino was thinking 1 second about the Me Too movement when he was putting that together. I don't think that it was in his mind at all.
Yeah, and so I'm thinking about that too, and I'm thinking about Sharon Tate's family, them seeing this and their reaction to it, and how that differs from a lot of the people who have criticisms, and just trying to see the film and those responses from multiple perspectives, and trying to have an understanding of people in their different views of the events in that film. Didn't change my opinion of the film, but it was just something that had me helped to have a different viewing experience this go around. I will say it still stands, like the performances across the board in that film were amazing. My favorite scene in the movie is still the one from my first watch, and is when Cliff Booth goes to the Spawn movie ranch. That whole sequence is extremely well done as far as setting up and building tension, and then just the de-escalation of that. And also again, that was one of the scenes that subverted my expectations, because I just knew that this was when Tarantino was going to make me sad and kill Brad Pitt's character. I just knew he was going to die, and just the way that scene is constructed and how he shot that and how everyone's performances, the tension that's just building. And we've gone at this point it was like an hour. It was almost like we're at the hour and a half mark, maybe beyond that. and there's not been any death or killing. No one's died yet. And I was like, man, this is when Tarantino, surprises you and kills Brad Pitt. But then Tarantino does the unexpected by not having that happen, which I do appreciate that. But I just love the movie making in that regard, and just the building of the tension and how he executed that. The scene is still the scene with DiCaprio and Timothy Olyphant. The movie within the movie. Them shooting that's still a great scene. And the performances in that. Just across the board. But the thing that stuck out to me, and I mentioned this to Brad, like at the end of the film, Brad Pitt's character is being put into the back of the ambulance as he suffered a little flesh wound, so to speak. And DiCaprio's Rick Dalton comments to him through the window. He says, "Hey, man, hey, Cliff, you're a good friend." And it just, for a lot of people are saying like this movie really isn't about anything, or there's a bunch of scenes in this film, the early half of it, where nothing happens until like the night of the Sharon Tate murders. That scene, that moment when he says, "Hey Cliff, you're a good friend," it really, for me, it made me feel like that, this movie was really just a drama about these two friends.
What did you think about, since you've already, I don't know, you spoiled certain parts of it, so I'm just going to build off of what you've already said. Not going to add too much new information. But what did you think about the moments after that, where somebody who I'm not going to say who it was asked, "Was anybody hurt?" And he answered, "No. Me and my wife were not hurt." Yes.
So I, Brad also posed this to me. This is what I'll say.
Great minds.
I took it as, earlier in the film, Cliff and Rick are in the car, and Sharon Tate and Roman Polanski pull up the drive. They're going into their home. They're going into the driveway, and Rick says, he remarks to Cliff, "You know who that was? That was fucking Roman Polanski." So that line of dialogue lets me know that obviously Rick Dalton is very well aware of who his neighbor is and his neighbor's stature in Hollywood at that time. That's Roman Polanski. He's like, man, I'm going through what I'm going through, and this whole time that guy's living next door to me. Man, who knows? I could be one pool party away from being in the next Roman Polanski film. So he knows who he's living next door to. He even remarks about why, having real estate in Hollywood is such a big deal if you're going to be a star there. So when he makes that comment, to me, and I told Brett, I didn't even really pick up on that both times I watched it. But, having said that, what I take from it is that, Rick is at that point, he says, "Oh, no one was hurt," as a means of, trying to downplay the situation. So to give the idea that, everything's cool, no need to be worried, no need to be afraid of me. I'm still cool. So if you want to invite me over to a pool party so that eventually I can mingle and end up being in a Roman Polanski film, please, by all means, like I'm open to invitation and suggestions. I feel like he downplayed it so that, to give the idea that everything's okay, don't worry, don't be afraid, and definitely don't be afraid of me. Like, I know who I'm living next door to, so please don't be afraid and weirded out by me. Also, it could be taken that he said that because he believes so much in Cliff Booth as this indestructible man, because earlier in the film when Kurt Russell was in the trailer and he's trying to get his character to allow Cliff to be the stunt double, and he doesn't want to because of the rumor or the idea that he murdered his wife. He's saying, "Look, man, you could put him in wardrobe. You can shoot the guy, stab him. You can hit him with a Buick. He can take it." So that gives the idea that Rick thinks that Cliff can take anything. Like, he's an indestructible man. So to
me, like, obviously, I asked that question with my own ideas of what that scene is about, but I'm looking forward to going back to this film with it being a comment on the fragility of Rick Dalton's masculinity, because I think that he didn't mention that his good friend Cliff got hurt was because Cliff is in the position of always taking pain for him. It's Cliff's job to carry his load, carry the load of his ego, the load of his masculinity. And so Cliff on screen and then in life was there to absorb the physical pain of Rick. And the idea of Rick going into this new era of cinema where masculinity, like traditional masculinity, is no longer valued. To me, he's him leaving out that Cliff took a bullet for him is just speaking to his fragility. Like, this is a movie where, like, I'm anticipating because we were at the beach, we didn't have a chance to, like, get away and watch the film again. But I'm anticipating my second watch differently because I don't have that anticipation of, okay, what direction is Quentin Tarantino going in? Like, now that I go, like, I think this is the message I'm supposed to go into. Like, I know where it's going to go. And I have kind of a thesis statement of what I think this film is really about. I'm really looking forward to going into the film again with that idea in my mind and trying to see if that's what I think the movie says. Because my greatest challenge when it comes to me going, like, it's obviously amazing filmmaking. It's aesthetically so rich. The craftsmanship is impeccable. Quentin Tarantino offers kind of a sage versatility in the history of cinema and how he can translate that to film with just a handful of characters. I think that that's amazing. But am I okay with this message of this type of that I'm watching the death of a certain type of masculinity that I think Quentin Tarantino himself reveres above all else? Like, is that the message of the film, or is that something that I've woven in my mind having watched the film and then recalled it 1,000 times? And also listening to that one podcast,
Pure Cinema Pod,
where he talked about all of the cinematic influences he had putting this film together. But I don't know, like, I can tell looking at it, like, that's a good movie. The next question is, do I like this? Can I, even if I don't necessarily agree with it, can I get behind it?
Yeah.
So I love that about this film. Will I come out on the other side going, like, I love this film? I don't know. So I'm looking forward to my second watch. I'm looking forward to my third watch.
I'm looking forward to the conversation with people upon their rewatches and multiple, subsequent viewings of the film, because it is a film that is, like all of Tarantino's films, that has so many different layers and is open to, obviously open to interpretation in many different ways. But yeah, I enjoyed this rewatch. I'm also curious to see where this film is going to fall in line with the rest of his filmography as far as
a ranking.
Yeah, I haven't even put thought and effort into doing that just yet.
Brad was making, like, the absolute strangest face at the end of this film, and I was just looking at him, and I'm like, what does that face mean? And Brad looks at me and goes, did I just watch my least favorite Tarantino film? And I think that there's a lot of people asking themselves that question.
I don't know. I see a lot of people who really loved it, too.
Yeah, same.
Yeah.
Same.
Yeah. Well, I'd be curious to see what the consensus is of this film, having put some distance between its release and, a revisit. But yeah, that's going to do it for my week in Dork. Coming up after the break, speaking of masculinity in cinema and in Hollywood, is our review cast for Fast and Furious Presents Hobbs and Shaw. If you haven't seen the film, do yourself a favor, check it out. Then come back and listen to our review cast as we will be talking spoilers.
Yeah.
So yeah, stay tuned.
Hey, this is Liz from People I Think Are Cool, a bi-weekly podcast where I interview my favorite creatives from across the globe. If you're looking for a dose of creative inspiration, then go to peopleithinkarecool.com or subscribe to People I Think Are Cool on iTunes and Stitcher.
You like film, from cult to classic, from blockbuster to B-movies. And there just isn't that one place with all the fan fervor and passion that's covering the kind of mad, diverse brilliance that you love.
Well, that's where you're wrong.
AfterMovieDiner.com is that fan-built movie nirvana just for you, featuring the sweet, sweet writings of the wife dork herself. AfterMovieDiner.com. Go there. Be the best you can be.
And we're back, ladies and gentlemen. Our review cast for this week is for Fast and the Furious presents Hobbs and Shaw.
2 hours and 17 minutes. That's a lot of film.
It's a lot of movie. It's long.
It's a lot.
Long movie.
It is. It is. I will start off by saying that it is no secret that I was very excited for the release of this film.
Because you were such a huge Fate and the Furious fan.
No. I won't say that. I would say because I was a huge fan of that trailer.
Going into this film, you were Team Jason, right?
Yes.
Oh, this is an interesting question I had not posed.
Yeah, I know.
Brian, who are you on team? Hobbs or Shaw? Hobbs or Shaw?
Hobbs.
Lisa.
Yes. No, I'm Team Shaw. I'm Team Jason because of Lock, Stock, and Two Smoking Barrels, of course.
But we're not talking Team Jason, Team Rock. I think I prefer Jason Statham, his filmography overall, to The Rock. But, like, I'm more of a Hobbs guy than a Shaw guy because Shaw is a murderer. Justice for Han!
That's not fair. Yeah, that's true. Obviously, Shaw is a villain, and he's like Spike in the Buffy universe.
See,
he has a lot to make up for.
You've all been misled. Shaw is not the villain. The actual villain are the writers of the franchise. Shaw did not kill Han. The writers did. So I'm not on their team. So I'm Team Shaw still.
Yeah.
Okay. Interesting. But I definitely love Hobbs. Like, I think Hobbs, The Rock resurrected this franchise. Fast Five, he brought so much life and energy and animation to this franchise. And, I enjoyed the first film, and I'm with Brian, even though that Too Fast, Too Furious is corny. It's a good kind of corny.
Yeah.
Too Fast, Too Furious is great.
I really enjoyed it. And I love Tokyo Drift.
It's great.
I love Tokyo Drift.
Really
the fourth one, it's fine. But then Fast Five is like, whoa, I love this world. Fast Five is when you're like, this is a mythology.
Absolutely.
And then, 6 is great. 7 has issues.
Yeah.
I can
reasonably so.
Honestly say, with the exception of Tokyo Drift, I cannot tell I don't know what happened. It's like the Bourne movies for me. They're just all one blur.
No. The Bourne movies, there's the one that you can see what's happening, and then there's the shaky cam.
And then there's the one with Hawkeye in it, and you're like, what's this guy doing here?
Guess what? Bourne Legacy? Best Bourne film.
What?
Best Bourne film.
Hot take.
That is... I think he's being purposefully spicy. I don't think that's his real take.
Who? Jeremy Renner?
Yeah, in the Bourne
Matt Damon?
No.
He was Matt Damon.
The spinoff.
He had his own film.
Michael Gilroy directed it. It is really good. You should watch it, Darren. I'm sure you have.
It's like Mandela effect.
It has a terrible ending where it's like there's a motorcycle chase. Credits. Wait, what?
Exactly.
But I really love the direction of that film, and I love the action of that film. I love The Bourne Legacy.
I need to rewatch that because right when you said it's the one movie I saw. I know we're getting off track here, but Bourne Legacy is the one movie I saw that when it ended. Right before the credits, I was like, "Oh, okay, the story's about to start." And then the credits roll, and I'm like, "Wait, that was it? That was the movie?"
Yeah, there should be like an hour after this.
Yeah, because I was like, "Okay, so the whole movie was just him trying to find some medicine."
Yeah, yes.
Right, okay.
He found that medicine.
But we cannot say that about Hobbs and Shaw. There's a definite arc. At the climax of the film, you're like, this is definitely the end of the movie. We have triumphed over evil.
And then there's another ending. But we're getting ahead of ourselves.
Yeah. Okay.
Let's let Darren take over. He loved the movie, so we want to get his good, but he can't do the good first.
No, I'm not going to take it. I'm going to pass it to Brian.
Brian, very brave.
Start off with your good of the film.
So my good, going into this movie, there was no surprise that I was looking forward to this film. Me and Darren have talked about it at length every time that trailer came on. the second trailer hit, and I was just like, I told Darren, I was like, look, this movie is basically giving us what they're selling. So there's no way we can go into this movie and not like it. Like, you go into it knowing what you're going to get. So and
you're not allowed to get upset if you're like, this is like a dumb action movie.
Exactly.
That's what you signed up for.
Exactly. So you know what you're going in for when you get this movie. And I will have to say that they do deliver on the bombastic nature, the spectacle of the action. They definitely deliver on that. They do deliver on the chemistry between Jason Statham.
Undeniable, palpable.
Very palpable. The comedic timing between the two of them I thought was really fun. We'll get into some of my issues.
This is the good, Brian. The good.
Yeah, I know. So right now, I'll just say, like, I enjoyed the chemistry between the characters. I knew what I was going in and what I was getting. It's high octane, ridiculous action, and
not a lot of cars.
Well,
it's just
some.
the presents, Lisa.
I
just
don't
the
count
presents.
Jeeps as cars.
Yeah, I mean, presents. If you have cars and if you have family, then technically you fall within that Fast and Furious realm. But my good, and hopefully I won't steal anybody's thunder, the cameos. So this is spoilers. So Ryan Reynolds and Kevin Hart.
Do you count those as cameos? I thought
I count
were
those.
Kevin Hart was like a cameo. I thought that
Reynolds was that felt more like an extended.
It was definitely a surprise.
It was a surprise. I would call them extended cameos.
Yeah.
And going into it, I didn't know anything about it until maybe like the day or two before, when everybody kept talking, like when the reviews were coming out.
Did you have that spoiled?
No,
to you?
not spoiled, but they said we have. Oh, I didn't know, but they said we have some surprise cameos.
Oh, I didn't even hear that.
So I was like, oh, okay. I knew it was. I was like, it's not Helen Mirren, because I've seen her in the trailers and the commercials, so it's not her. I know it's not Helen Mirren. Great to see her. Love Helen Mirren. But I was like, okay. So I was expecting to see some people from the previous Fast and Furious. I was like, oh shit, is Vin Diesel actually going to be in the movie with all the friction between him and The Rock behind the scenes?
Yeah, he ain't.
I was
Who
like,
has beef with The Rock?
I know,
Vin Diesel.
Get over yourself, friend.
But that's what I was thinking. I was like, oh, that would be so badass if like they buried their issues and Vin Diesel was actually in this movie. Come to find out, that wasn't the case. But surprisingly enough, Ryan Reynolds and Kevin Hart, and I thought that their extended cameos were some of the best. That's really what I walked away from this movie.
I think that's what Fast and Furious films are all about. They're like, we give the people what they like. They like ridiculous stunts. They like explosions. They like women in gowns. And they like Ryan Reynolds. And we do. And he's literally just doing the Ryan Reynolds thing.
He really
and I
is.
just, nom, 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 nom. I eat it up. It's so
good. He really is. And come to find out, I mean, they're doing the movie. Their next movie they're doing together. The movie that's going to be on Netflix, directed by Ross and Marshall Thurber, Red Notice. So it's going to be him, Ryan Reynolds, and Gal Gadot are going to be the three main stars. And
that's what we want.
So it's great to see, because I think Ryan Reynolds and The Rock, as you mentioned, have great chemistry together. And of course, Kevin Hart already has that chemistry.
Have you seen the Boss Logic poster of Hobbs and Wade?
No, I haven't.
Yeah, so it's the poster from Hobbs and Shaw, right, where The Rock's leaning up against his car, and then there's Deadpool and he's leaning up against his scooter.
Oh, cute.
That's cool.
I want it.
That's cool. So I'm definitely looking forward. And The Rock did hint that the cameos are a bit of a preview of what we could see in the sequel.
Hobbs and Dinkley.
Yeah, and and Kevin Hart, like I love him wanting to give his resume and audition.
I mean,
to
it
be
was
part
funny.
Of the team.
funny.
I couldn't believe what I was watching, because I had no clue there was going to be cameos, and the Ryan Reynolds thing threw me off.
Yeah.
And then when Kevin Hart was in the plane, I was dying with laughter. I was dying.
Yeah, it was great.
hilarious.
And even before he showed up, just them riffing on each other when Jason Statham and The Rock are going back as far as you're too big to be stealth and all this stuff, which is great.
That outfit that he gave The Rock from his wardrobe, and then he screwed him over at the airport.
But then he rocked the outfit and charmed his way onto that plane.
I did.
Yeah.
What was his name? Mike Coxmall?
Yeah, Mike Coxmall.
Yeah.
He goes by Michael.
And there's that little lady sitting next to him. He's like, "Oh, I really love your babushka." She gives her that glowing
gives him a smile.
Yeah,
So sweet.
yeah.
Rock.
So I mean, all in all, I had a great time watching the film. Yeah. I mean, it's fun. It's a lot of fun, but highlighted by those cameos.
That's it. That's your good.
Yeah, and the chemistry between the two of them.
All right.
So
Wife Dork.
Yes.
The good.
My good is I'm gonna start with. I have more than one good. I'm gonna start with Vanessa Kirby, her character. I think she's really interesting. I like the fact that she can hold her own in hand-to-hand combat. She's also good with the computers. She reprogrammed all of those the guns and stuff. I thought that was really cool. Flawless cat eye. Like somebody who has so much on her plate, the fact that she can start her morning keeping her cat eye perfectly symmetrical, like that became aspirational for me. I'm like, could I do that? Could I get up in the morning and do a sweet cat eye?
You could do it in the morning.
With a little smoky stitch.
You need a whole team to keep it all day.
I did not, I hate to slip in a bad with my good. She could not keep a wig on. You gotta wear a wig cap, friend. If you're gonna really commit to wearing a wig. If you're undercover, you can't just toss a wig on over a loose wave.
Oh.
You've got to put a cap on. So I appreciate that. They've done well with giving their female characters a lot of autonomy. I think that...
I mean, The Rock's line to Shaw when he's like, look, she's her own person, and, if she wanted to come to the mountain that is me and climb it, I'd let her, but, that's on her, man.
Yeah.
I appreciated the will they won't they. Because if they weren't kissing... then Hobbs and Shaw were kissing, and my body's ready. My body's ready to see that, but is America's body ready?
It reminded me of Tango and Cash with Terry Hatcher. And It had that whole vibe.
That's
to it.
what I was thinking about the entire time. Yeah, and I appreciate that. Any Tango and Cash love.
So I appreciate that a lot. I loved everything that happened on Samoa. I thought, because that was definitely in the trailer. We all knew we were going there, but I wasn't quite sure how it was going to be accomplished.
I wish I hadn't had that spoiled.
That would have been the best.
I would have
if it
loved
wasn't.
the return to Samoa as a surprise.
That would have been cool.
Especially since it's like the Return of the King ending. It's like its third ending in that movie. Sure.
But I feel like that tied in the character of The Rock's daughter.
Yes.
Not Rebecca, because that's his name.
Sam.
Yeah, and her family tree.
And that idea of what is it like to be an immigrant and have that disconnection. I thought that was beautiful. I thought they managed to bring back the ancestral weapons as like this was part like in a way that I didn't find jokey. They were like. Our father, he was a criminal guy. We have created a legitimate business out of the ashes that he made of our family. And so we are digging back into our ancestral roots. And we still had the satisfaction of seeing the gun cabinet filled with all of those wonderful implements of violence. And then to have that okay, well, we're going to have 6 minutes. I think that they supported bringing in that element in a way that was kind of believable enough in the
Fast and Furious.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm for that. I thought it was really satisfying and really beautiful.
And are you sorry?
You go.
Is it my good? Can I jump right off of your good? I loved the relationship of The Rock and Cliff Curtis. Yeah. I thought they were he's barely in the movie. Cliff Curtis is barely in the movie, but that's why you get Cliff Curtis because he shows up. You learn that there's tension between the family. This is the reason why, and suddenly I'm emotionally invested in their relationship.
Absolutely,
really, really like that. I loved the Samoa sequence. My I like the opening of the movie when it introduced Hobbs and Shaw and went full split screen. I was like, this is what I want. Yum, 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 yum. That was my nom nom nom.
Yeah,
I was eating that up. He's in London. It's raining. He's in LA. It's a party. More of that. I would have loved more of that in the film itself. Yeah. Because I felt like it was David Leitch, the director, did this, and Deadpool 2, and Atomic Blonde, and John Wick 1. Like the visual flourishes of that opening scene, I was really excited about.
Yeah, especially like when he goes to the tattoo parlor with The Rock and
Yeah. I mean, I really thought he was having a lot of fun.
I could watch an entire movie of that, of them having their own separate but
like
weirdly parallel
like a
careers.
wicked split screen movie.
Yes, now that I know that that's a possibility, why not more movies like that?
Yes.
What was that movie where it was like, what was it called? Quadrant? Where it was like
Time Lapse. Time Lapse.
Yeah, it was like 4
But
different.
Wicked is this slasher film set in San Diego
From
made
the 70s?
in the 70s.
Okay.
And the whole film is split screen, top half, bottom half.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
But I would have loved a Hobbs and Shaw split screen movie. Sadly, that doesn't happen. Yeah, I agree. Chemistry is a lot of fun. I like that I hate you, I love you kind of relationship from Tango and Cash brought over to the Fast and Furious. We got a little bit of that in the last movie with the prison sequence.
Mm-hmm.
I loved Helen Mirren. I love the Shaw family being expanded with Vanessa Kirby.
Wish they would have mentioned Owen Shaw a little bit more.
I also would have liked that. That,
Yeah.
that might come up in my bag.
Okay.
But I thought Helen Mirren, she has so little screen time on it, but she is so good in the film.
Mm-hmm.
That's my good.
I also liked Isa Gonzalez as Madam M. She's so hot.
She is.
Like, can we
I
handle it?
agree
We
with that.
can't.
I don't know if I can.
You can't handle it.
We can't handle
What was
it.
that outfit she was wearing?
Boobs.
Boobs.
Yeah, I didn't see any outfit. I just saw perfection on the screen.
Oh. Yeah, and her career's taken off since Baby Driver. So I mean,
God
she's
bless
got,
her.
More
power to her.
She's in the Spielberg movie coming up.
She's a good addition to the Fast and the Furious
Yeah.
world.
Yeah, absolutely.
Madam M. Where's her film?
But that's my good, Darren. Why don't you take over?
You already covered all of my good, Brian. My good was going to be the cameos, but I also dug the Maui stuff, and also what you said.
You don't have anything? What about Idris Elba? You don't have anything to say about Idris Elba?
Have you seen Luther? Have you seen that BBC series Luther?
Sure
I've seen like the first season and a half. But
You should watch the whole. He's great in that.
He is. From what I've seen, I love him in that show.
Have you seen Ghost Rider: Spirit of Vengeance? He's
I kind of felt like he deserved to win in this movie.
Yeah.
What else was he in? Have you seen The Wire?
Oh yeah.
Idris Elba is great in The Wire. He's great in a bunch of stuff.
Yeah, he's always great.
Brian.
I know The Wire. There's a lot of TV.
Game of Thrones is over, man.
I know.
Watch Westworld and then The Wire.
There's a lot of TV, man. It's a lot.
So
Yeah.
I mean, that's what I think of Idris Elba. He's great in those shows. What else? What else for good? The Stingers. Like I thought the Stingers were funny.
More cameos.
Yeah.
I kept on having an anticipation for what the Stingers were going to be, and then when I was like, "Oh well, it's just another sticky shtick," I was like, "Come on, fellas."
Yeah. I leaned over to Brian. Actually, after the first scene with Ryan Reynolds, I was like, okay, I just need him to be in the next one. Like I just need a whatever his character's name was in Hobbs and Shaw. Like I wanted to see him fully integrated into the franchise. And definitely after the film and during the credits, I was like, okay, I can see where they're going. I'm pretty sure he's going to be, he's going to be in the sequel if they do a sequel because his chemistry. And like you said, Lisa, you weren't lying. He is doing his Ryan Reynolds shtick, but the fact of the matter is, I love the Ryan Reynolds shtick.
Yeah.
Like when he was doing the Ryan Reynolds shtick in Pokemon Detectives.
Pikachu.
Plaza. I forget the name of the movie.
Plaza, Jesus, Lisa.
I was like, this is inappropriate and I don't like it. But in this film, I'm like, yes. I'm for it.
It was that scene in the diner, probably one of my favorite.
Yeah.
That like you said, Brian, that literally was my good. That scene and then the airplane scene with Kevin Hart. Those are my two favorite scenes in the film.
It's nice to see things that are on purpose funny in a Fast and Furious film.
He was in. Damn.
Shots fired.
Damn. But you know what? She's not wrong though. All right, Brian, let's get to the bad.
Oh, my bad. Well, everybody knows I do trailer reactions on the YouTube channel, REVIEWcast. Check it out. But I gotta say, man, like sometimes I feel like a lot of the stuff does get spoiled in the trailer.
The Samoa sequence should not have been in the trailer.
That would have been so exciting.
It kind of took some of the thunder out of my enjoyment of the film because I knew like some of the badass sequences that I saw, I mean, even seeing them in context, it just didn't really hit me as hard as I would have liked them to hit watching it in the movie theater. So I think they and so a lot of times, like people say, "Oh man, you give too much away in the trailers." I mean, you don't give too much story or plot points away, but you give a lot of those big moments.
Every sequence in this movie, like every set piece, is in the trailer.
Yeah, you're right, and it just kind of took some of the excitement out of the movie for me.
I'm gonna jump in. I'm gonna piggyback off that. That's one of my bad too. My issue is, I think the problem is not that, everything that was, like, they showed everything in the trailer. I mean, if they had more in the film, then everything being in the trailer
There's
was
so
also
much in the film, though. It's 2 hours and 17 minutes.
But I mean, as far as like action, I'll wait till I get to my bad turn to elaborate on that. But I felt like with the scenes that were in the trailer that were also in the film, I agree. Like, they didn't hit me in the same way that they hit me in the trailer, but I felt like, because that trailer was better edited, and the way when you see those scenes play out in the film, I don't feel like the editing, coupled with the score, which is also another one of my bad.
Don't ruin all your bad. Man.
I won't jump.
Let
ahead.
me have some of this bad.
I will, but the fact that those scenes that we do get in the trailer are in the film and they don't hit the same way, I really feel like those were some of the elements that caused them, for me, to not play the same. And then I was disappointed that, by the end of it, you go, well, shit, that was it. Like all the stuff that was supposed to be like the big moments were in the trailer. They didn't have anything else. Like
to add to that.
Because when you watch the trailer, I go, man, that shot is cool. And they're showing that in the trailer. I can't imagine what they're not showing us. But then
they showed us.
That's
they
it.
showed us everything.
And I was like, fuck, that's it.
Yeah, I know. So it was a bit disappointing on that front. Something else for me as well, which this kind of dovetails into David Leitch, but it's the idea of this movie, and it has so much action. It's 2 hours, like you said, 2 hours and 15 minutes, and it's loud. It's a lot of action. But I kind of equate it to like a hamster in like a running wheel. It's like you're running super fast and you're giving all this energy, but you're running in place. It doesn't feel like it doesn't.
This is the guy who directed Atomic Blonde? What?
This is what I'm going to. Okay, so this gets me to David Leitch. So I just recently I wanted to watch his filmography, so I watched Deadpool 2 prior to Hobbs and Shaw because I was lukewarm on that film. I like that movie a little bit more.
But action-wise, Hobbs and Shaw and Deadpool 2 are very similar.
It's very similar. And then I recently watched Atomic Blonde, and there's something about, Atomic Blonde is more like an art house action film. I mean, it's a movie that's made on a budget, $30 million.
Yeah, but it is an action film.
It is an action film, but having that limited budget and the stuff that he's doing in Atomic Blonde is the things that excite me and the things that I want to see.
It's visceral. He's doing his John Wick thing, right?
Exactly. So him and John Wick, but now it's like, since David Leitch has kind of graduated to this big budget studio action, these tentpole films, I feel like he's lost something that we missed out on in like the original John Wick.
So generic.
It's very generic.
After the champagne problem and the tattoo parlor sequence and the split screening, the action becomes so rote and boring and dull, and it was infuriating to watch.
There's nothing, especially from somebody who I have always been behind, especially I talk about 8711, his action design studio with him and Chad Stahelski. Chad Stahelski, who stayed on John Wick, we've just seen John Wick Chapter 3.
It's amazing.
And that movie is amazing when you look at the aesthetic of the action and how it's choreographed and everything like that. But this movie is so bland when it comes to the action.
Darren is raising his hand.
I have thoughts on that. I felt the exact same way, and it wasn't until like hearing you both talk about it that at least for me, I think what the problem is that with John Wick, with Atomic Blonde, and even with Deadpool to some extent, because I prefer a lot of the action to Deadpool 2 to Hobbs and Shaw. I think what you have at the center of those action set pieces that you don't necessarily have in Hobbs and Shaw is in those other three franchises. You have the action centered around and the action star doing the action, whereas in Hobbs and Shaw, Shaw is just driving a car. So the action is really centered around the car, not necessarily the person doing anything as physical. But
there were still hand-to-hand things.
There was, but it was really a set, like those hand-to-hand moments, like when they got rescued, when they were getting electrocuted. That whole sequence was really predicated upon the escape from the exploding place, the building collapsing. They got in a vehicle again. They're trying to catch up with Hattie so she can jump on the car and get away.
Yeah.
So a lot of the stuff was really predicated on big set pieces as opposed to being centered on. And then, granted, there were hand-to-hand things, but
to me, they spoiled their best hand. And I'm not saying it was like mind-blowing,
right?
But I found the scene where they're both playing on opposite sides of a window, where they're both in two corridors. That was in the trailer, and they should have kept that to themselves because that was their best hand-to-hand stuff. And I think on first watch, legit funny. On 17th watch, where I'm finally sitting in front of the film, you're just like, I know what's going to happen.
Exactly.
But again, one of the reasons why I would suspect that you find that probably like one of the best sequences is because, again, that set piece is actually centered around those particular stars doing that action as opposed to buildings falling and bombs blowing up and cars like driving around, like, because that again feels generic, whereas the other action sequences where they excel at really center around, okay, let's put Charlize Theron in this staircase and not cut away and have her go through this ordeal
the
physically.
Geography, because of the editing of this movie, is impossible.
Well, and that's the thing, because you go into that sequence in Atomic Blonde where, even though it's stitched together, but it's like one long take and you understand the geography of that, it just seems like once you get past a certain threshold of a budget and you have so much input, then we start getting into these generic action sequences. When you have somebody like Jason Statham, who has shown that he is a good fighter, that one sequence when he goes to his sister's apartment and he's fighting those guys, again, heavily edited, and you're not putting his abilities on display.
I've seen him knock that bottle cap off.
But I'm just, exactly.
He's got skills.
Yeah, and I want to see that. I don't want to see it hidden with a whole bunch of edits. And with somebody like David Leitch, who comes from a stuntman, background, we know that he can shoot that. And we've seen him do it in Atomic Blonde. So why can't he do it in this film? So I don't know. It just, like you said, Brad, it just felt way too generic.
I'm trying to find the editor of Hobbs and Shaw, but when you go to the IMDb page, there's an editorial department link which has 18 editors.
You know what? And it feels like, but that makes total sense. Like, that movie feels like it.
Yeah.
Is that all you got for your bad?
Yeah, that's pretty much.
Being nice, generous today. All right, Lisa.
Yeah, I piled on that bad a little bit. I think I'd like to focus my bad on the idea that Jason Statham and Vanessa Kirby are at all the same age. The idea that they were palling around as kids doing hijinks. Jason Statham is a 52-year-old man. Vanessa Kirby is a 31-year-old woman. And the fact that Hollywood sees these two actors as the same age is nauseating. That's my bad.
Yeah, I mean, because I know you mentioned a little bit about that in an opposite fashion with the Mission Impossible with the love interest.
Well, I mean, it's with the love interest, it's like one thing where it's just like it's
gross.
Not appropriate for a 50-year-old woman to be with 50-year-old man to be a 26-year-old woman. What possible life experience could they have in common? What are the man's intentions on this woman? But them going like, these two human beings are close enough in age where they can be brother and sister and about the same height when they're kids is ridiculous. It's ridiculous. And it's not even like, there's no explaining it. And I'm sure it came up. I'm sure they were laughing at the fact that I'm Jason Statham, and this is my really spot-on Jason Statham impression. I want to tell the listener he's not in the room. I'm Jason Statham, and I could be your dad. Like, in the 50s, he could legit be her, he's 21 years older. My sibling's Catholic. We got married at 23 years old. Like, he could legit be her dad, and Hollywood presenting them as the same age, puke. That's just stupid. And it's telling the audience that they're stupid. Like, the fact that, how fun would it be to have another 50-year-old actress play his sister?
Sure. I mean, I agree. I agree. But I want to talk about the real travesty of this movie.
Okay, Brad, go ahead. What's the real travesty?
The real travesty.
None of that was the real travesty?
No. The real travesty of this movie is, why can't Eddie Marsan ever survive a film?
Oh, I love that guy. He should have been my good.
I know he was doomed.
Yeah. Like, the moment he shows up, you're like, oh, he's going to have his neck broken.
That guy has the sweetest face. He only deserves the best things with that mug of his.
I love him in Atomic Blonde, and he's at the center of the best action scene of Atomic Blonde. And so, like, when he showed up, and I thought he was going to die, and then he lived through that first action scene, I was like, oh, dude, he's going to make it to the end.
Yeah, right.
Oh, no.
No, womp womp.
No, but
He's like Eddie. I mean, he's like David Leitch's muse, but he kills him off in
every
every
time.
movie.
I mean, at least he got to wield a flamethrower in this one.
He did.
Yeah.
He did.
Yeah. I think. I mean, we've talked about all bad. I mean, I would like. You know, Fast and the Furious is a tricky world, right? They do absurd and dumb and impossible feats all the time. There's, dads who are actually brothers and sisters. There's, superhuman leaps from buildings into, to rescuing their loved ones from collapsing into canyons and all that, it's absurd.
Yeah.
And then to introduce in Hobbs and Shaw the Black Superman, Idris Elba, who I like. And I think he's actually pretty darn good in this, Darren. We didn't talk about it in the good. I would say, like, of the Fast and Furious antagonists, he's a solid antagonist. Like, he brings it to the movie. I don't think he's sleepwalking in this role.
No, I don't think he
I think
either.
the role is super uninteresting. But to make it a superhuman cybernetic warrior, like we are now in Universal Soldier territory within the Fast and the Furious context, where they're already doing, like, comic book feats of strength. I just don't find, like, to me it's not that it's a bridge too far. It's just not the genre that I want this to be.
No. I think it lives perfectly within, like, that Fast Five, Furious 6 area. That's what I like to see. And I'm hoping, again, like I talked about, Justin Lin will bring some of that back in Fast and
but
Furious
now there's
9.
drones and sentient motorcycles. Like,
that was pretty badass.
I don't know. It's just it's too much for me. It's too much.
Yeah. All right. That's
anyway, another good. I mean, my quote is like, the kryptonite line. I like that line. I'm Black Superman. Yeah. Here comes kryptonite.
That was the kryptonite. that was good.
I like that line. Yeah. And then, boy, did he break his back.
Yes, he did.
Cyberman.
Yeah, it was cool to see his cousin too. I guess
I heard that.
that was cool too to see Roman Reigns, The Rock's cousin, in there. He didn't get any speaking lines. I mean, he's not an actor; he's a wrestler. But it was just cool to see him in there too.
Yeah. I like all that stuff.
Yeah.
All right, so that's my bad.
That's it for your bad?
Yeah, Darren.
Oh, y'all are generous today. You know what? We need that in the world today. In addition to the bad editing of the film, in addition to all the best action beats being in the trailer, like I mentioned earlier, one of my problems with the film was the musical choices.
I liked them.
Bless your heart. I'm not mad at that.
They're very Fast and Furious, Darren.
Yeah. And so that's my problem. So there's the sequence that is in the one of the trailers when they're chasing after the motorcycle, and it ends with that motorcycle flying through that double-decker bus. So in the film, what hurt that sequence for me, outside of the fact that it was also in the trailer, but one of the reasons why I feel like it didn't hit me the way that I was expecting is because of the musical selection for that. A score, the right score or a score can make or break a sequence. It can change the entire mood of a scene. It can evoke certain emotions.
Oh, the score is terrible. I meant the needle drops. The needle drops were red.
Yeah. But that's what I'm talking about. Like because they would go into a needle drop before transitioning into the score, and those I just wasn't a fan of those. If they played that one, I would be over the moon. That's my jam. But what's picked in the film, I just wasn't a huge fan of as far as the needle drops. But definitely like the score, I just felt like it was lacking. I'm someone who is a huge fan of music. I'm a huge fan of instrumentals and scores and film. And so, like I said, for me, a score could make or break a scene. And
absolutely,
I feel like that sequence could have had so much more. As a matter of fact, that sequence is so much more badass in the trailer when that motorcycle was going through that bus when they have the instrumental to Jay-Z's public service announcement. It just evokes a different feel from that moment when Idris Elba stands up and says, "All right, you want to go to war," and that's just from a few seconds with an instrumental cue from a Jay-Z song. And I'm not saying it has anything to do with the artist, but just that the instrumentation and and what it sounds like and the feeling that it evokes match with that particular visual. And I felt like the movie just failed, on multiple instances to deliver that. Like I really feel like those action sequences, as generic, and that's part of the problem, like what you were saying, Brad, as far as their staging and execution. But as generic as they were, I really feel like they would have at least felt different and maybe a little more energized had they had a different score behind them. And so that was one of my problems as well. And yeah, I mean, to go back to when I was giving Idris Elba shit, granted his performance, like you said, he's not sleepwalking through it. Idris Elba never phones anything in. That he is just a phenomenal actor. That can't be denied. I just like as far as what the character in and of itself, I didn't find that interesting. Is all.
Agreed.
That's all. But Idris sells the part. You do find him menacing. He does sell the determination of I'm going to get them at all costs.
I just want more for that guy in film.
Absolutely.
He's playing all these like second fiddles and bad guy characters. Like I love him in Star Trek Beyond, but he's like playing the bad guy character over and over and over.
He is definitely leading man material.
Yeah, and they tried in Dark Tower, but they just didn't
come
work.
on, man.
No,
I mean they tried, but
did they try in the Dark Tower?
Well, no, the movie didn't try, but they tried to position him to be a leading man, but or an action, to lead his franchise.
I mean,
because he
would have been a great Roland in another Dark Tower film.
Yeah, had a different script or whatever. Had that character been developed different. And the same thing with Hobbs and Shaw. Like I really feel like I definitely would have a different opinion of that character if he were developed in a different way. But now, as it is, it's a pretty forgettable character. So the music, the editing, the generic action. I do want to share one thing about the good to piggyback off of what Lisa said. The sequence in Samoa, that sequence when they have all the trucks hitched up to each other in the trailer, and you go, oh my god, because every time that trailer would play in the theaters, when they get to that part, you could hear the audience just laughing like how ridiculous, and not really snarkily laughing at it, but just they're
like in a Fast and Furious laugh.
Right. And so I got that, and I was like, that is freaking nut. That's ridiculous. And I didn't think that. I was surprised that they pulled that sequence off as well as they did in the film. Like
they have good aim for throwing hooks.
Exactly.
I know.
And then when the guy just bumps up to it and it just happens. Oh
my god!
They all looked excited that it worked. Like everybody looked
you
surprised.
Should be, because you know what? That's $1 million lottery chances, bro. Fuck.
Oh no, go ahead.
I literally, like, when that sequence was happening, and then towards the end of it, I remember thinking to myself, I was genuinely surprised that I was buying it. Like outside of that stupidity, insanity,
one
logic.
guy who throws 2 hooks, and he's just
on a moving vehicle.
Yeah, and he's so happy that he makes it.
Aim for the axles. If you can hear me, just read my lips. Aim for the axles.
I know.
It was nuts.
Even in that sequence, the sense of time I noticed because
man,
so it says she has to extract the virus from her arm.
30 minutes.
And it's 30 minutes. So they start. It's nighttime.
Yeah.
And then she has a conversation.
6 minutes have passed.
Yeah, well, 9. I think it was like 9
it has to
minutes.
be 6 minutes before the guns come back on.
Yeah,
it's crazy.
So 9 minutes
so
passed
much
when they first showed the timer again.
Yeah, it was like 20. But the thing is, with the before the next time they show it, she sits, she has a conversation with her brother. Then the whole thing with when they come on, and then Hobbs does his whole ritual, and then they start to fight, and then the sun comes up, and then you look back and it says 21 minutes. So all of that happened in 9 minutes.
Yeah.
Like what the heck?
Numbers mean nothing to these people.
Yeah.
That doesn't bother me so much. Like, to me, I'm like, that's just Fast and Furious. But these cyborg men, that's a bridge too far.
All right, the ugly, Brian.
Not much for ugly, but I'll use this round to just talk about the IMAX experience. I know we saw it in IMAX, and
at the AMC, the new one. The new
No.
Hoffman.
Oh,
okay.
I wish.
But,
they're not showing it. Lion King is taking up that auditorium.
Boo.
But the thing is, it's like, I know IMAX is supposed to be this premium format with this great sound. Like, the sound is just not that. It just didn't sound great to me in IMAX.
Maybe it's that presentation.
It's Hoffman.
Yeah. It is because
Hoffman.
it just sounded like jumbled noise. I couldn't. I was just like,
Hoffman.
This sound is terrible.
The sound we saw it at the Alamo Drafthouse in Theater A.
Hey.
They're big.
And
mega
it
theater.
sounded fine to me.
Sounded pretty damn good.
Yeah, it's Hoffman. That's
All
an older.
right.
They haven't overhauled that auditorium like Tyson's.
Yeah.
Because that Tyson's IMAX theater,
Oh,
that
my God.
sound rivals the Dolby Prime auditorium.
Yeah.
Because I just want to hear like the different. I just want to hear the sound separated, like have it mixed correctly where I can hear, and it just sounded, at least where we saw it, it just sounded so jumbled, and I was just like, this is horrible. This is absolutely
Ruined
horrible.
experience.
Yeah, so maybe that added to maybe. Well, no.
That would bother me.
Yeah, because sound is so important
It is.
when you watch a film, and
Especially when the ticket is like $19.
yeah, I mean, and even if it is just a whole bunch of action sequences, I still want to have good quality sound. So that was, I guess that's
frustrating.
Yeah,
Hoffman, get your shit together.
Yes,
Really.
please.
I like the Hoffman though, because they show like the FP, and nobody else is showing the
will do
FP.
that.
show some nice independent films.
They will do that. That's it for your ugly.
Yep.
Lisa.
Yes. I guess my only bad is that
Ugly.
The evil corporation. My sister's
Jesus,
walking
you
in.
scare me.
Sorry, we're finishing up our review cast.
Go for it.
Okay, so for me, my one bad that I can think of off the dome is the fact that the evil corporation had the name of a little French girl.
What was the
Etienne.
Oh,
So, which to me sounds like Etienne, which sounds like a little French girl. So, I guess I thought that the idea of the big bad in this film was so interesting. This idea of taking emotionally broken and abused men and replacing their parts with robot parts.
Oh, wow.
That's fascinating.
Well, Lisa brought a lot.
Well,
of,
when you put it
thought
like
to
that.
Yeah,
Well, I found, like, as a character, Idris Elba's character I found him very
sympathetic.
Sympathetic,
Yeah.
right? And
Yeah.
and like within the realm of Fast and Furious films,
Yeah.
dude can be turned. Dude can be turned. So I like that idea of like as an evil corporation going in for people who are already damaged and going like, well, I can make you the next thing. You deserve to be the next evolution. I think that that's interesting, especially, and I don't want to get into Brad's bad, but the question of where is Han?
God damn it.
So he's going to come back as a robot?
Yeah, why not? He would make the sexiest robot.
All right.
He is pretty sexy.
He is. I would drift right into his robot arms.
Oh,
Just right.
I see
would
what you did
snuggle
there.
up in. It would be so good.
But would you Tokyo drift?
I would, because I'm an open-hearted person. I would do any kind of drift he needed.
Okay.
All right.
Okay, that's my bad.
All right.
I mean, am I ugly?
You're ugly, Brad. Besides your face right now, because your wife just said she drifted into.
I drifted right into
Let's
his
be real.
bed.
I drift into Han too.
Oh, okay.
Han, yeah, that's my ugly. Like
Okay.
justice for Han, man.
It's coming.
I know you're saying it's coming. I know you're saying that.
But how long are we just going to pretend that Shaw is not
I know,
a murderer?
But like,
know.
not only did Shaw, obliterate and murder everyone's favorite Fast and the Furious co-star, but he also like tried to blow up Dom and his family.
I know his house.
he
his entire
lightly
house, his
tried to, but
baby.
he's British.
He tried to
so
kill
it's
his
like,
baby.
okay.
And he killed a fuck ton of cops in the opening of Furious 7.
But as
They're
we
not like
learned,
people in movies.
as we learned that he was under the, it was all Cypher. This was all puppeteered by Cypher, Charlize Theron.
Yeah.
Was it?
Yeah, was it?
I
Shit,
don't-
I don't remember
I don't
anything
know,
about
man.
Fury. Was
I
that
don't know.
what's going on there?
Yeah.
Brian's is pulling it.
No. I mean, it's.
I need to go back and one, listen to our review cast of Fate and the Furious. And two, watch that movie, which I'll never do again.
Yeah. Not worth it.
That's probably not true. I
really-
own every single Fast and Furious movie except for 8, and that seems wrong. But that movie was so boring.
One of my good was that we saw it in an Alamo Draft House, and they had a really wonderful recap of
the pre-show
Hobbs and
was
Shaw's storyline leading up to this film. Because there are definitely chapters I straight up slept on. I did not see.
I don't
know I
remember
didn't.
much about 8. Was Cypher really orchestrating everything? Anyway, Justice for Han, that's the ugly.
Yeah.
You know,
I agree.
there's this whole robot voice that's been talking to Idris
yeah.
Elba this
Is
entire
that
time.
Han?
And for a
No.
moment there, I thought that maybe that was Han, or but now I'm thinking it's probably Charlize. But the fact that they didn't even address that by the end of Hobbs and Shaw, I found frustrating also, and that the 3 post-credit sequences that we got were just jokey BS.
Yeah.
Come on, man. We're used to Marvel now. I need one jokey, and then I need one that drives the plot forward. That's how Marvel does it. That's how Fast and Furious has done it in the past.
Exactly.
And that's how they should do it now.
But you see the type of tone that Hobbs and Shaw is taking, and how
very
serious
different.
they're taking the storyline.
I don't care, Brian.
I agree.
Okay.
I agree.
All right.
I'm with you. I need it. I need
Okay.
hashtag Justice for Han.
Justice for Han.
Yeah.
All right.
Darren, what's your
Hashtag
ugly?
family.
My ugly is a guy got stabbed with a brick.
That's fun. That's under my good now. I'm retroactively replacing everything I said. That's whimsical, and I'm for it.
I don't think it's fun for the guy who got stabbed with a brick.
Oh, okay. I'll give you that. The 2 guys that got
Must
stabbed
have
with
a
bricks.
very
Spoilers.
soft sternum.
Yeah.
Mine's just straight
that's all
cheesecake. Like you press it with your thumb and it just stays.
Memory foam. All right. That's all I got for my ugly. Yeah.
So, okay, before we leave Hobbs and Shaw, we got to talk about the ranking. Like, where do you put it within the oeuvre of Fast and the Furious films?
We pull my list up.
Yeah, I've actually looked at Brian's already.
This isn't fair because Brad and Brian are the only people who rank anything.
Well, I don't need you to tell me your entire Fast and Furious list.
Okay.
You should follow the Turtle Dork on his letterbox. You should follow Mouth Dork on his letterbox because it's all there, guys.
Okay, we'll take all of the Fast and Furious films without Tokyo Drift. Like, make a little mound. Dig a little hole in the middle. Like you're making, pasta. Like you're making, like if you're going to, like where you crack your eggs. You dig a little hole in the middle. You can put Hobbs and Shaw in that hole.
Jesus.
And then put Tokyo Drift on the top.
I mean, what is that ranking? So is Tokyo Drift like
It's the best. All of the other
So
movies.
Tokyo Drift is like the marinara
Yeah.
of the Fast and the Furious franchise spaghetti
Yeah,
pile?
Hobbs and Shaw is somewhere in the middle. And then all of the other are just kind of making a soft and gentle circle.
So is Hobbs and Shaw like a meatball?
Yeah, yes. Yes, and nom nom nom. Nom, nom.
Okay.
I don't know about the spaghetti metaphor, but
I can see it. And my sister is here. She can see it.
I think Hobbs and Shaw is somewhere in the middle.
Yeah, that's where I have mine.
So
So
generous
out
tonight.
of 9 movies, I have it at number 6.
Like, Darren, you
Yeah.
gotta say, like, Hobbs and Shaw is better than The Fate and the Furious.
It's right there. Fate and the Furious is the bottom. Hobbs and Shaw is like right there. But
Don't you think Furious 7 is less than?
okay, I'll put it up above that.
What about Too Fast, Too Furious? It's a little better than Too Fast, Too Furious.
That's Tokyo Drift.
That's Tokyo
first
Drift.
of all.
That's the
shit.
best.
Yeah.
You're right.
No,
I'm wrong.
The cameos elevated above 7 for me, but 7 and 8 are the low. Then I give Hobbs and Shaw, and then the rest.
I feel like
What's
you
your
just
number
said
one?
what I just said.
just screamed
5.
in the
Fast 5. I
Okay,
think.
all right. We all agree on that. We all agree on that. Lisa?
I don't
No,
remember what happened in
Tokyo
Fast 5.
Drift is Lisa's number.
Oh, yeah.
Tokyo
yeah,
Drift
yeah.
is my number 1.
Yeah,
But
which
you
we
can't
all
be-
know is do. I knew that. I knew that.
It's the one like Fast and Furious where I watched that. I was like, I bet you I could do that in my Honda.
And Tokyo Drift have Sonny Chiba in it.
Yeah.
It's great. Oh,
Yeah, it's
So good.
Tokyo Drift is great.
I like that movie a lot.
Yeah, that's my number 3.
That's my number 3.
Yeah, I know it is.
Yeah, simpatico.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, that's going to do it for our review cast. If you've seen the film and you would like to share your thoughts, hit us up on social media at ItModcast on Twitter and Instagram and Facebook. Brian, what are you looking forward to this week?
This week, finishing up The Boys, and movie-wise, I'm interested in The Kitchen. I know it's based off of a Vertigo comic book. Don't know really much about it, but before I saw the trailer and earlier this year, Tiffany Haddish doing more of a dramatic role. I wanted to see, because we're used to seeing her being more of the comic relief.
It's a great cast.
Great cast, and so I wanted to see her kind of spread her wings. So I'm really intrigued to see her performance in this. The movie looks okay. I mean, from what I see in the trailer, I mean, it didn't wow me, but I'm looking forward to it. So, The Kitchen and finishing up The Boys. So I'm looking forward to this week.
That's it. That's all you're looking forward to this week.
Okay, you're making it seem like I'm forgetting something.
Wow.
Your birthday.
You know what, Lisa? What are you looking forward to this weekend?
I'm looking forward
cutting
to
your mic off.
Your 40. Your 43rd birthday.
Oh, okay.
Darren and I are Leos.
Yay! What are you looking forward to?
I am looking forward to, in the distant future, other things will happen, but Brad's birthday is on August 18th.
Yeah.
For his 40th birthday, we are doing a screening of Blade. If you haven't got your tickets yet, they're actually selling pretty great, and you're going to feel really left out if you don't show up. Brad is going to get surprise cupcakes.
Yay.
He did find out about them because we share email, and I forget.
Whoops.
So whoops to that. But he doesn't know what kind because he promises he didn't read
I think
email.
they're Blade flavored.
God damn it.
They taste like a Daywalker.
Oh.
So they have blood in them?
Whose blood did you use?
Only mine.
Oh, all right.
We're married. My blood. Okay. I mean, I just make it for free, and I'm looking forward to The Kitchen. I'm excited about that. Also coming out this week, but I'm not sure where, is After the Wedding, which is something that was our first Sundance film.
Yep.
Oh.
And I'm looking forward to seeing Once Upon a Time in Hollywood again. We've already talked about how I'm looking forward to my second watch, differently but equal amount to my first watch. And I want to get started on The Boys. I'm hoping that our Wi-Fi gets repaired.
God damn it.
I watched all of Queer Eye Season 3. It's amazing. That should have been my weekend, Dork. Damn it. So good, though.
Well, you can follow that young lady at Sidewalk Siren and at Baked Dork on Twitter and Instagram. She's also at Sidewalk Siren on Letterboxd. If you feel like it, you don't have to. If you have extra time in your day, your schedule, whatever, you can follow Brian at The Turtle Dork on Twitter, at The Turtle Dork 1 on Instagram, and at Brian William Young on Facebook. Don't feel any pressure. You don't have to, but if you want to. Mouth Dork.
Yes, the thing I'm most excited about this week is Darren's birthday.
See, Brian, that's how you friend.
I am a friend, and I'm really excited about Darren's birthday. I've gifted him a loaner copy of Murder Falcon. I'm also looking forward to The Kitchen. I've been watching a bunch of Rutger Hauer movies in preparation for Reston Pictures.
Yeah.
Just watched this afternoon Hobo with a Shotgun, and we watched Blind Fury before that. That dude's awesome. Reston Pictures, sir.
Yeah.
So, yep. But mostly it's Darren's birthday, Brian, that I'm looking forward to the most.
And House of X and Powers of X. What's coming out this week?
House of X #2 out on Wednesday.
So excited.
All right. You can follow that guy at MouthDork on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and Letterboxd. And I am looking forward to my birthday on Friday. I'm going to go see The Kitchen and Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark.
No, you're not.
And I'm really looking forward to
this week? I thought that was next week.
No, it's this week.
Sure.
I'm looking
That's
forward
what
to
Fandango tells me.
It's the 9th. It's according to Wikipedia.
Okay, well, I'm also looking forward to that.
I'm going to go see it. I'm not looking forward to it, but I'm going to go see it because I want to go to the movies. But I'm really looking forward to trying to find a screening of Peanut Butter Falcon, the new Shia LaBeouf movie.
There are great things about that.
So, because I saw a trailer not too long ago, and it looked really good. So that's what I'm looking forward to the most. Hopefully, it's playing somewhere around here. If not,
I don't think it's coming to our area till the 22nd.
God damn it!
It's going to be at Regal Countryside.
All right. So, so much for this week. You can follow me at The Turtle Dork on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and Letterboxd. And a special shout out.
You know what you just said?
What?
You said you could follow me at The Turtle Dork.
God damn it.
At least somebody's listening.
Come on, man.
I was trying to draw traffic to your Twitter handle.
Especially after that amazing Comic-Con video montage you put together.
Yeah. Thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah. You can follow me. You all know where to find me at The Disco Dork on all social medias. Special shout out to a special guest that we have in the the Dork Cave over there.
What?
Hi. Who is that?
It's Teresa. She's my sister.
Yay.
She's the oldest sister.
Yay. Hi,
And she's
older
pretty
sister
great.
Teresa. Thank you for stopping by and joining us.
If I was, yeah. Are you team Jason or are you team Dwayne?
I've never seen a Fast and the Furious movie.
Oh, you're fine. I love her. You're not missing much.
Jesus. All right, that's going to do it for us. Thank you all for listening. Enjoy the rest of your week. Be on the lookout this week on Friday for our Fistful of Kitchens.
Yeah.
All right. In honor of the kitchen?
Yeah.
All right. That's going to do it for us. Thank you all for listening. Enjoy the rest of your week. And until next time. Do you hear how I got like sexy at the end?
That was
Next
good.
time.
Next time.